Okay, right, so I think we're now live, so we're going to wait here for a little bit until anybody turns up, which will be nice. So as soon as anybody's in the chat, just let me know. We're all friendly and stuff like that. I'm just going to post a thing, and we're live. So I hope everybody is doing pretty well. Oops, what did I just touch there? Who knows? Let's just check, we're all good, so we're all live. Is this live now? Is anybody in the chat live? Let me just do that. We don't need to have that up there. Here we go. Hello, Eric. How are you doing? Thank you. How's it for being here, my man? I think you are the first person in today's chat. That's awesome. Where are you from, Eric? Let's find out. I'm going to take a guess. You're not from here. You're not from outside my window. So whereabouts? And we got Sims with Sean and Nisika Juris and Ivan Buckingham. We are live. Yes, we are today. Thank you all for joining me. This is. Can you all hear me okay as well? I'm going to guess that we can. I've got a new little lapel mic from We've got Switzerland. I love Switzerland. We used to go on holiday to Liechtenstein when I was a kid. Hello, Metropa, which is always good. Kentucky, it never ceases to amaze me how broad a world we live in. We've got some Texas and the Philippines and South Korea. Wow, everybody! I think that's awesome. We're going to, obviously it's scheduled for 5 o'clock, so I'm going to wait a couple of minutes just to let everybody get here and stuff. We got Victoria from British Columbia. We got some Buffalo, New York, Montana. There's a very famous Frank Zappa song. I'm moving to Montana. We got some Floridians in the house. We've got some Portuguese. Morocco. Wow, it is just. I think this is awesome that you are all here, and you're here with me in my den of shame, as my wife calls it. This behind me is the only part of the room that's decorated, and also we have a fly in here today who's just flying around, happily, merrily buzzing. We've got somebody from Worcester, Stockholm. We've got some more people from Florida. I used to spend some time in Tampa back in the early 2000s, and what have you. So really nice, yes. So if you haven't seen already, I'm just going to give you a quick, just a heads up. I have been talking with some other creators who are kind of on various Discord channels about finding a balance between obviously creating great content for you guys that you all seem to love. Do you know, I used to live in Buckinghamshire. We lived in North Crawley, which is just outside Newport Pagnell, until I was 9. That when we moved to South Africa, and then Andrew Simpson. Hi, Andrew. I responded to your comment, Andrew, on Jeff's video, because yes, I think we ended up getting it confused at cross purposes. So there's a comment there if you haven't think. But I spent some time in Edinburgh. My mum is a Scot. She's a soap dodging Ouija, yes. So there we go. Anyway, so I was talking to some creators about finding this balance between creating content that obviously can go to as broad an audience as possible, but also then not burning myself out and creating sort of lesser quality content. Hey, Warren's in the house, boop, boop. And I feel that 3 times a week it's okay, but it is a treadmill. It's like don't constantly trying to do things, and occasionally, I know that everybody said that the content is fine and the quality is good. I feel that you guys are very gracious in giving up your time to watch the videos that I create, and I know, even though it doesn't always come across as apparent, that this video or that video or something, it feels like it's like a make weight kind of video, and I feel that's is disrespectful to your time. So. What I'm going to do is try and put a bit more effort into crafting videos that not only sort of stay true to the sort of the ethos of the photographic eye. So, so we are continuing to talk about, the whys of photography, but also, hey Charles, you're right. Also kind of, hopefully, taking the videos to a wider audience and being able to get more people to come, as I was about to say, come to the dark side, but come to the light side. Realize that photography is not all about gear and what have you. And obviously, we need to kind of, craft videos that encourage people to explore with us. The things that we understand about photography that are equally as important about as gear, but more difficult to quantify. Which is probably the big reason why there are so many people who don't talk about this kind of thing on YouTube, which is lovely. So we're just a couple of minutes. I make it 16:56 here, and as I said at the beginning of the stream, we'll wait just a couple of minutes. It's all right, Andrew. I am constantly confused. I think confused could be my middle name, but my middle name is Neil. There you go. Some TPE trivia for you. I am Neil. Nothing like the young ones, Neil, though. Although I do plant my seeds. Nature grows the seeds, and then we eat the seeds. Warren. It's getting to a point where it was okay, and certainly it was all right. But then certainly over the last I won't say the last month, but over the last sort of week or two. I have been, thinking about it. There is a, yes, Rivers Highland connected to Arnold. Yes, there is. I was going to say that somebody said, because obviously that YouTube has a thing that it's easier to make a really strong video that can reach like 1 million people than it is to create 10 videos that would do like 100,000 views or something like that. And ultimately, while obviously all these things, end up having a sort of financial benefit, I have, over the course of the life of TPE, discovered really what I get a kick out of photography, which is talking to photographers on an individual level, but also seeing the comments that not necessarily come through the channel, but when you search for it on places like Reddit and what have you, that people are like, oh my God, it's like I'm so inspired by Alex that Alex has kind of helped me reconnect with my photography, and I really, really enjoy it. And obviously, the more people who I can, encourage to stick with photography, the better. Obviously, that's slightly at odds with the kind of the ethos of do things for yourself, and it doesn't matter. But but the fact is, there is a platform here that can help people, sort of come back to photography as well. Because a lot of you guys, have written to me and said, oh, you're in your 60s or your 70s, or recently retired, and are coming back to something you enjoyed as a teenager. And I'm afraid I don't, James. I don't have a profile on Twitter. I am on Twitter as me, but that's I don't really tweet. No, the only other place that we have the TP has a footprint is Facebook, which. Warren, I think, see if you can pop the link in the chat, we'll find out. If not, go onto Facebook and search Photographic Eye. So there we go. Anyway, right, ladies and gentlemen, it is coming up on 5 o'clock in the afternoon here, and I sound like my wife used to work in radio, and she says I've got a face for radio. Boom, boom, boom. I'm here all week. so there we go. Yes, okay, so we are going to today look at the images that have been submitted to the TPE Crit feedback folder, what have you. For those of you who are watching who are not members of either the YouTube channel, so there's YouTube membership or Patreon, this is when you are members of that, you are able to upload images that we do this once a month with. So if you're interested, probably the easiest way to do is go through YouTube membership, and you'll find then there's a link for upload for the next time. So there we go. Right, so we're just going to have a little a little drink of that, and then we're going to go and start looking at some photographs, which is why you're all here. You don't want to listen to me waffle about myself. And there, look at that fancy fade. Look at that, so pro, so pro. Okay, so the main thing with critiques is that as I was writing to Andrew Simpson, Mr. Simpson earlier, is that, you know, obviously we want to find a balance between you know, things that are positive. I think that's always, you know, we want to see positive things in photography, but we also want to make sure that we are not sort of blowing smoke up people's backsides, because it doesn't really benefit anybody. And I think this is a case in point here. This first off picture, and I don't mention anybody's names in this, and also feel free to share your thoughts about the images, but do remember that obviously it is more from your side, it's more from all of our sides, it's more of a one-way conversation, and sometimes what can be, you know, sort of well-intended feedback can come across as slightly sort of passive-aggressive. So let's try and keep it sort of nice and simple. So here we go. So you've got this. So the lady's got this lovely long hair, and I can see what the photographer is doing. That he's trying to highlight the shape of the hair rather than rather than the face. So a kind of bold statement for a portrait, you know, and there's kind of, I think if you're going to go this route where you're breaking things down into a very simplistic, very sort of graphic orientated approach, that one of the things that I think you need to be mindful of is that tiny details. There are small things in this that are kind of letting it down, not from a technical point of view, but from a stylist, you know, sort of point of view. One is that her hair, sort of on the right-hand side of her, or our right, yeah, or her right, because we're talking about, it's all messy. It's stuck all over her shoulder and stuff like that. So I appreciate that maybe you're sort of saying, well, it's a juxtaposition between the smoothest on the left and then the right. It just doesn't kind of, it feels like it's a mistake. You know, which is not keen. So if you're going to do this, play with her hair. She's got lovely long hair and stuff, you know. So next time, try and imagine what it would look like to have a very straight on thing. So the hair is going down like a waterfall down between her, or you know, or something like that. But just, yeah, it needs to be cleaner. I think that's really the kind of what I'd like to see you do with this is revisit this, but make it cleaner, make it a bit more like you kind of intended. And I don't know the circumstances that you photographed in this, but it was obvious. This is obviously not a kind of a spur of the moment kind of image. That hairband, I'm sorry, the hairband. If you're going to do this, a clip, some sort of hair clip or something, not just like a ratty old hairband. You know, you know, it's not working. Something else you could also consider, which is slightly more technical. This feels like it's shot, you know, that it's lit with a strobe or something. Is that black background? It's gone very dark, like proper black, and I don't think it's necessarily doing her a favor. I appreciate maybe when I wanted to have any sort of distraction removed. I think in this case, there's the fact that her head is going into solid black kind of lets the side down a little bit, as does this fly. There is a fly I mentioned, the TPE fly. He's determined to get out of that window right next to me. So there we go. Yeah, so try something like that. But I see where you go with it, and kudos for at least thinking outside of the box. So that's a good, I think, you know, a good start. But yeah, I'd like to see this where you worked at it a bit more. Okay, right. So here we have the first thing that springs to mind with this picture is children of men. I don't know why, but it's got this kind of forlorn look, or maybe a kind of like, you know, like where's the place? Chernobyl. Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly got a post-apocalyptic feel to it. Whether or not that's what you were thinking about. You know, it is. I can see where you're going. We've got this this interesting scene, and what kind of jumps out at me straight away is, while I kind of, obviously we can see outside, and there is this very overgrown, lush environment outside, and then inside we had this very sort of Spartan, almost run down, sort of very cold environment. That I think if you were going to do that, what sort of it doesn't quite fit with me with that idea is that you can see those houses. There's something about those houses. It's not quite. I think it's taken away from the image somehow. And I appreciate that because you've focused on the shadows, and I like all that shadow stuff. It could be that's obviously how it works, but I think that those buildings are taking away somehow, because they're reminding you that outside is not just purely wild. Now, focusing on the inside of the building, I love what's going on there. That this shadow and very coldness with the very sad-looking dustbin there. It feels like this is two pictures. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but what I'm seeing is there's one picture which is focused on the shadow and the interior of the building, and then there's another picture which is the frame of the glass and this frostedness, and then the outside. So that the two of them keep competing with me. It's like on one hand I want to look at the one that's got the bird stencils on the top of the window, and then this framework with the outside. And there's the other side of me that goes, I don't want to see all the outside. I want to see this kind of pseudo-dystopian thing on the inside. And looking at the shadow work on the floor, I think there's a really strong case here that you could explore the shadows in a far deeper way. I think if you were able to revisit this environment, that you may find that now that you see it and realize that there are actually two pictures here, that it helps you actually focus in on the thing that you like. I think it's a great idea about kind of trying to layer these things together. In this case, it's not. I don't think there's not enough stuff outside that's kind of going to help that. But those buildings, for some reason, there's something it doesn't gel with me. But certainly this shadow work, the blues, and it's very, very strong. Again, it's graphic. I use the word graphic within photography quite a lot. And I like. There's so many things to this that I like, but they're not coming together. It's very weird, that's awful feedback. I think focus on one or the other with this. That dustbin is definitely the star of this show, but is getting lost somehow. Something in there, and maybe if you kind of move down a little bit, so if shooting down the window and close that door that you've come through, then it might help to sort of change up sort of things. But anyway, I like an interesting environment, and I feel that there's a lot more here that you've also photographed that would be really cool to see. Okay, right. Okay, so this is you talk about challenging preconceived ideas, and I really like what you are doing here. There's this slow shutter. I'm going to say it's a slow shutter speed where you're pulling up and what have you, rather than a multiple exposure because of the nature of how things are working. The first thing that certainly leaps to me is that you can do these things, absolutely, and I think well done for doing it, but it doesn't make up for the lack of basic compositional ideas or an aesthetic, and this is kind of where you can fall foul of this idea of the technique is. The technique is kind of what we're seeing here, rather than the depth of the photograph. And if you were to redo this, and I'm seeing as it says the Spirit of Wells, so I'm going to get this as Wells Cathedral, that go back and be in tune with the people who built this place, right? So cathedrals are huge because you're supposed to walk in as a medieval person and lift your eyes to the sky. And once you understand that and put that into your composition, so make it a sound compositional picture, and then bring in this wonderful idea that you've got of the slow shutter speed, then I think you're on a winner. Here it feels like it's a bit of a mess, that there's nothing quite grounding in it. There's too many arches, there's too many I don't know. Somebody in the comments knows what the things are called, the flying buttresses and things, right? And they've become distracting rather than helping to solidify the wonderful idea that you have. And then you've got these two figures down the bottom there that are just they're in the way. And again, that's why if you found a composition and you went like this, but then it would be a lot better. This, I really like where you're going with this idea, but I think you need to just not let the technique push aside the need to have a sound image underneath all of this. Yeah, so pretty cool. Right, I like that. I like this when people take something that everybody's photographed the same way, for 100 years, and then look at it a little bit differently. So here we have, and again, this is kind of the flip side of the coin. It's it's a fairly, I don't want to say standard because that sounds unfair. So, and also I can see the name, and I think I'm going to guess this is in South Africa because the name says Graskop on there, and I think what's happening, you have this this very interesting looking waterfall. And you've at least tried something, with some foreground here with these rocks and what have you. And I'm going to guess this is in a canyon. And it feels like it's still in these sort of, the foot of the camp that says, this is how you are supposed to photograph things, right? You've got a wonderful waterfall and you're doing this. And now, it's not to say that you need to take every subject and make it crazy or photograph it in a completely new and unexpected way. But here, it feels like, while it's, obviously I can see it, and you have problems because obviously I've got some lights in my eyes, so I can't see it as well as I probably should. And I can see there's lots of detail, and there's all the shadows and stuff. But what's happening is that the composition that you've tried, this very sort of daring idea of having this stone here and then this kind of stone here, and we're sort of looking through them. What it's doing is it's a big barrier to us actually going into the image. It's not allowing the eye to go and look at the waterfall, especially given that the waterfall is somewhat hidden by that stone. And so what we have is when we have these angles that we're looking at, it's actually drawing us to a very dark place in the image. All that left-hand side of the waterfall is extremely dark. And really we want it to be pushing our eyes towards the waterfall itself. Now, this I think comes back to, an idea where next time you at this, you're in Graskop, or, maybe I don't know if you live in I was about to say Eastern Transvaal, but it's not anymore. It's Mpumalanga. And revisit the places and try and think about how the whole composition works, rather than taking an idea because we're going to try and put some stuff, some very heavy foreground interest in it. Sit with it, and you could do this with landscapes because I think this is a beautiful thing, is sit with the image for a while. It used to be, back when I used to smoke and stuff like that, set up the camera, and have a cigarette and wait those 5 minutes or something, just being in the environment, and come back and look at the photo. These days, obviously, I don't, but try something like that. Set up the shot that you think is working, and then take a break from it, and then come back to it, and then look at it with fresh eyes and see if you are seeing somewhere that it's not quite working. And I think in this case you may sort of see that darker part on the side, which you probably looked at initially and went, it'll be really cool because then I can have all of this details. You've got some highlights and some shadow detail and all sorts of things. And it's unfortunate, I think you've kind of lost sight of what it is that you would like to photograph here, which is this this waterfall, which is very interesting, but it feels like you weren't quite where you wanted to be with this. But yeah, again, I will say, if you're able to revisit these places, certainly do and look at them. But I think next time you see an image or a scenario like this, I think focus on the obvious thing first, and then build slowly. It's sort of thing there. All right. So here we go. So this is an interesting. So we've got. So it's interesting in so much as it's like the image is cut straight down the middle with these red topped bollards, and I like that. I like this idea that you're sort of seeing two things, because there's a higher level and a lower level, and it's almost like one of those kind of classic. Who else gets this feeling that this is one of those classic, artists, the lessons they used to teach you in school about like perspective drawing, where all the lines would go together. That these things are really kind of sort of sitting there. Sorry, I've got my train of thought is just completely gone because I'm a twit. Don't you hate it when that happens? There we go. All right. Okay. Could you just let me know in the chat? I have a feeling that something has stopped, like the stream has stopped. There we go. Okay, there we go. It's very interesting. Okay. Something just boom, 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 boom. Okay. Anyway, all right, so we're back. So with this, we've got these bollards down the middle and stuff like that. And then there's there is the lighthouse. And what is going on with that lighthouse is that it's kind of dominating the scene because of the because of the bollards, and our eyes being drawn all the way to there, and I'm not quite feeling this. I'm not quite feeling the shot in this format, right? It's a portrait orientated image. Whereas if you maybe went landscape orientation, and you've still got, because we can make use of these bollards. I think you've got the right idea. The bollards are I think they're the center point to this image. The bollards and the lamppost, not the lamppost, the lighthouse are the real things here. But the way that it's framed feels a bit odd, because it's not central, and it can't be because of the bollards don't lead directly to the lighthouse, and there's a misbalance thing with the people on the right and the people low down on the bicycles. So if you went landscape and kind of moved slightly, so you have the bollards more, rather than going straight into the image, that they're coming across and leading through. I wonder how that would feel like doing it. And it's interesting that Groovehole has said that they like the framing, that it's super interesting, and that's it's a great observation that for them that framing works. For me, it feels like there's something missing, that you've seen an idea but you haven't really kind of like pulled it together too much. I'm going to sound like a stuck record. I would like you to revisit this place if you can, and think about how you can expand on this image. Think, as Blue Sapphire has talked about the sky. Yeah, the sky's got nothing in it. There's no sky. In fact, until Blue Sapphire even mentioned the sky, I hadn't even looked at it. That's how nothing there is in that sky. So, I think a different format and possibly less depth of field on this. The one thing that I don't get with this, which one would assume you would given these lines, is any sense of depth. It feels like it's just it's compressed, like you're almost photographing like with a telephoto, and it's not feeling it. The fact that you are recognizing all these things is a very positive. absolutely, but it just feels like it's not quite coming off. But I would encourage you to go, if you are, to go back and forget everybody else for a moment and concentrate on those bollards and the lamp, why do I keep saying lamp house? The lighthouse, and see what you can find. See what you can find, and I think that there is a, you know, there's a far better photograph here for you, and it certainly looks like there's ample opportunity to explore ideas with this. Good stuff. Okay, so we have oops, I've gone on the wrong thing. Okay, so we have what looks like a very cold, very cold twilight, I'm going to guess, given there's quite a lot of light on in the houses. Okay, so the colours on this are what really pop out immediately. That, you know, you got these blues which are very cold. You got that cool orange, and the indigos and the violets and what have you in the sky. And they all are conveying a mood, which I think you have captured the mood and the feel beautifully. But echoing back to, you know, a couple of images where we talk about the idea has sort of trumped the image, is that the image itself here is it's just missing something. It could, and with all due respect, it feels like you've been in, it's early afternoon in the house, and you've looked out the window and you've gone, oh, wow, the light and the colour and stuff is beautiful, and you just walked out of the house with the camera and taken a picture. And that's what it kind of feels like. And that is not I'm not slagging you off. That is kind of it's kind of a bonus, actually, because at least you're recognizing, at least you are looking and being aware of what these things are here. A couple of people mentioned about the car. Yeah, the back side of that car, and it looks like it's in a parking lot, so it's not moving. That is, okay, you got to spend a bit more time thinking about the image itself here. Now, what could you do? What can you do from this vantage point to make it more about the bigger picture, the weather, right? Because the weather and the coldness and the cool quality is what's carrying this, and that sky is beautiful. So everything down in the bottom, let's say the bottom quarter of the frame, can just disappear, right? The car, the parking lot, everything. We then just cut off, right? And then move the camera up. Move the camera up, so we just got so almost like the houses are kind of growing out of the bottom half of the bottom of the frame, and you've got more of the sky, right? And again, if you went to whereas I told the last person to go to horizontal, if you got a vertical format, then you bring in the sky, because that sky is beautiful. The colors in that sky and stuff like that, that's where the picture is. It's you know, it's a beautiful thing. You know, and we're not going to start talking about, you know, the fact that there's some twigs in the left-hand side and stuff like that. I think next time, think about what it is that you are photographing, because here you've got a gut idea about what it is you're photographing, but you're not photographing it. You're taking a picture of the street, which I'm going to assume that you are familiar with. This is a big assumption. In a way that you see it all the time. Stop taking the picture that the person down the road would take, right? And be you, right? Just get in there. Nice picture. As I said, I think the atmosphere and stuff, everything is spot on. It's the way that you've treated it is a little bit kind of it's a little bit average, and I hate to use the word average, but it feels like it's snapshot and stuff. So you've got the right idea, but yeah, again, and this is often what it comes down to with critique. You need to kind of just spend a bit more time thinking about the photograph rather than the snapshot. Okay, so here we've got somebody who has spent more time thinking about things. So we got this flower, which is really nice, and again, I'd like to say that the petals are, it's not, it doesn't feel like it's actually like out of focusness. Oh, it's out of focusness. No, it's not like kind of that depth of field thing going on. It feels like it's like a movement. But then I kind of look at the stamen, the bits in the middle, and they're not moving. So whatever you've done, I really like that idea. It doesn't matter if it's post or whatever. I think that works. What I don't think works with this is the black and white treatment. It is a subject that we are mostly familiar with. It's a flower. It's a very delicate thing, and it can be very pretty. And the way that you've treated it from a technical point of view with the blur and stuff like that, I think is lovely. And I quite like the square composition and all those sort of things. But the black and white doesn't carry it for me. I think the reason being is that while the tones on the outside of the petals are lovely, the actual, whatever you call them, the heads, the stamen things, they don't have enough tonality to them to make them stand out. From where I'm looking at them, a lot of them are getting lost into darkness and blackness and something like that. So it's not quite panning out. I think in color, you would be picking up the subtle colors and changes of all those stameny things, and it would make the picture a lot stronger. Certainly that's kind of my gut feeling with this, is that it's the tones that are letting it down in the black and white. As I said, the petals, wonderful. It's just that the head of whatever it is, this flower, is not giving me that same gorgeousness of what's going on. And I don't, with these kind of critiques, I don't really often talk too much about technicality kind of things. But see these little bits here? I don't know if that's picked up. These little bits of white and stuff in there. I know, you really kind of, if you're going to do something like that, this kind of image, those need to go. You've got to get those gone, because if you kind of screw up your eyes a little bit and you look at it, squint, what you see are those little specks of white. So your eyes are always kind of drawn to them. So try and, if you're going to do this, which kind of is breaking an image down into very, sort of smooth tones and things, bits like that are a real distraction. And I think it would have taken you maybe like 5-10 minutes just to J brush them out, so like dust brush. God, I'll learn to speak one of these days. Chucky speak good, proper. But yeah, I think colour on this would certainly work. If you have more of these, try it in colour, process it in colour, see what it does, and try, if you are able to, print them up big. I think these would benefit from being really big, 30 by 40 at least. See what happens. A friend of mine grows crystal flowers, as a weird thing, and she has some very big prints, and they look stunning. So yeah, try it out. Okay, hey, this is like a flower theme tonight. More flowers. Okay, it's. Yeah, so a little bit of chess here, and I feel what's happening is you've got the word sort of collateral damage in the title, and this is interesting. I'm never like a huge fan of titles, but I know a lot of people will title their images, and it gives us an insight into the sort of thing, at least that you're thinking with the image. And you've got here all the backline pieces all hanging out, going, hey, we're all chilling. And then of course all the pawns are in this field of smashed up flowers. And now Peter Reba in the comments has said that the image is top heavy. This black thing at the top, it's too much for me. I think maybe you're sort of going for an oppressive sort of look. You can do that with your lighting. And now I said earlier, in the previous thing, that I think the black and white was the wrong choice. I think colour is the wrong choice in this one. And I also feeling that there is too much going on here. It is confusing the message that you were driving home. That this is all about, you know, there are pawns in life and there are people who make decisions and they're not having to suffer the consequences of those decisions. The fact that you have all of the background pieces, you've got the castles and the rooks and the knights. Get rid of them. Get rid of those guys entirely. You have maybe the king and then a couple of the pawns down. Make it simple. You need to simplify your idea, right? And Blue Sapphire said, not quite getting the idea here, right? And that's because you're not communicating the idea that you have in your head in a simpler, more direct and easy to grasp idea, right? So that's why I would say if you get rid of all of the pieces apart from the king, because he's the one that ultimately makes all the decisions, and one or two pawns, those pawns must be down. The ashes, I like, yeah, that's a good idea. The flowers and the ashes and stuff like that. Getting close, so this is less wider, grand Napoleonic kind of scale, and be more like I'm here, right? This is a king piece, and these people who have been wasted, right? And do a little bit of some black and white stuff. I'm thinking possibly you could explore the ideas of a very shallow depth of field and stuff like that, where the pawns, because the pawns are the subject here, not the people, not the king piece. It's the pawns that we're interested in. Put them at the front, put the king at the back, looming over, because that's what he's doing. He's looming. He's distant. He's aloof. Right now, he's in the front, right? The kings aren't at the front. They are, that Pink Floyd line, from the rear forward he cried, from the rear and the front rank died. That's what you need to be doing here. And if you're a Pink Floyd fan, then welcome to the channel. We are going to discuss the Pink Floyd lyrics. But it's that kind of thing. I think you got the right idea. It needs more work, dude. More work. But yeah, going in the right direction, pare it down, make it simple. Look at that, when you put me on the spot having to remember Floyd lyrics. But I should do, because obviously that's Dark Side of the Moon, which is obviously a classic. Okay, so here we go. So again, a misty kind of feel. I would love to spend a day in this environment. Maybe not standing in the wet, but certainly in those woods. It's my kind of place. So I think what we've got here is a potential. We talk often about people seeing the ideas, seeing the photographs, and what immediately strikes me with this image, even in a very short view, is that stream, the stream that's coming through the foreground, and the way that the trees were leading to that one standalone, it looks like a pine tree, Christmas tree, in the middle there. He's lovely, he's framed, he's by himself. He's the standout guy in a forest, right? And the fact that there's mistiness in the background, it works so well. But the thing is, he's being shot, he's lost, right? Okay, that he's in all this kind of stuff going on, and it's because he's in the background, or in the middle distance, that he's being lost, right? Often, if you ever watch like a Bob Ross thing and stuff, and he goes, I'm going to put a little happy little tree here or a happy little cloud, they're not stuck away in the background, they're kind of front and center. And I think this is what's happening is, this photograph is great without, if I just do this, if I crop out, I keep the stream, I like the stream, crop out, or just the tips of the trees coming in at the side, right? So if you do this, that tree in the middle then is so much stronger, right? He is like the star of the show. You see little trees, little baby tree, hello little baby tree, but now he's the star of the piece. Right now he feels like he's kind of wandered onto stage by accident. So I think you've got the right idea, but you wanted, I think you want to be a bit more bold in your choice. Uncle Eric says, the feeling about the mist was a bit heavier, the sky was a bit more interesting. I think in this case, unlike the image with the firehouse, with the oh my God, the thing, the lighthouse. Why is it so difficult? So I think the image with the lighthouse, that was a sky that we sort of inherently go, there should be detail in this. Because this is a cloud, a sort of a misty environment, I think our minds are more inclined to go, it's okay. We're okay that there's not too much going on there, because it makes sense. It has a purpose. If this were were not a misty day, and that was just a very, let's say like an overcast sky, but like a high overcast when there's really nothing in the sky, then it would be less, I think I'll be less inclined to say, don't worry about the sky too much. But with this, it makes sense. So I think, you really got to get in there a bit closer, tighter crop, and I'm kind of, actually, I think a real tight crop in a maybe like a 4:5 ratio portrait would be really nice, and I like that. And somebody did mention in the comments also about getting down a bit lower, getting down off eye light. Use that stream, which you're doing correctly, to lead our eye into thing, but to lead our eye a little bit more. I think there's making a really nice photograph here. But it's. I think there's too much. I know what you're going for, but it feels like it wants to be tighter. And Marek, I really wish. Yeah, I could spend a day with you in this environment. I love forests. So here we go. We've gone from the sublime with the small strip to a real, like a scar that just runs through the environment. Now this is an interesting, an interesting look, a way of thinking about a landscape, and I feel that this is somebody who's gone and photographed with intent, which you've absolutely have done, and done it pretty well. I think, if you look at this image, there is there is a very strong line going central, and then of course the trees are sort of breaking, and the fact that the trees also stop, so that line continues past them, I think makes it far stronger, because we can also imagine it going up into the sky. The thing that I don't particularly enjoy about this is that runner. I don't think he lends anything to it, and unfortunately he is a distraction coming through this whole image. We look at, you've gone to such you've gone to such lengths to really think about this image, and I was going to say it's raining, but it's not raining, and yet there's this guy who's running through it that doesn't add anything, and is actually really distracting. So that would probably be, let's just lose him. Let's wait for him to run past. It would have taken 10 seconds for him to disappear. So I like what you're doing here, and the fact also, looking at some of your post work, you have, I think rather cleverly, dodged the middle section of the sky, so it's slightly lighter in a very subtle way, which I like. I'm less keen on the kind of the haloing around the trees on the edges, because it makes it obvious what you've done, but that subtle lightness in the middle, well played. Well played thing. So I think it's getting this very strong, and well done for seeing the potential here of something that I probably would have missed. It's a lovely image. Yeah, it's that runner, man. get rid of him. I think you could probably have a little go with a little bit more dodging and burning and stuff, just to give the image a little bit more scape. You see how on either side, so we've got this culvert, right, and then the field goes flat on either side. Maybe make those fields just a little bit darker, like a a quarter of a stop darker, just so they kind of reinforce this zoom sort of thing, because it would also add another aspect. Because even looking at this here, I can sort of see that obviously we've got the path on the right hand side, but on the left hand side it feels like there's remnants of a path or something similar. So I think that would look pretty cool. Right. And it reminds me I've just started running again. My knees are not thanking me. So here we go. So, snowy. There's a scene, because of course I suppose for a lot of people in the world, the weather is still a bit cold, which is, thankfully it's not here. I had enough of the cold. Hi Diane, thank you for being here. So we've got here, so this looks like it's Japan, something like that. I think that's Japanese. I can't quite see from there. And it's a snowy scene. The people are walking, and I think it's one of those kind of scenes that isn't necessarily the most exciting image in the world, but does offer a little bit of chance to play with something that's fairly ordinary. Now, I'm thinking one of the first thing that crosses my mind when I look at this is that you have at your disposal this little street of light, the pathway of all these lights that are punching into the darkness, and they're catching all the snow. Then you have this single person with their umbrella walking along. Now, I'd imagine there are people coming back and forth along this the whole time. Someone mentioned in the comments, it was William, about not knowing what he's supposed to be focusing on, and I sort of echoed that here. You've got the right idea, the leading lines and all that sort of stuff, and I think maybe you've put the lady where she is, probably because you felt to have her. If you look down the line of lights, there's two lights at the bottom, and if you shifted her in front of those and stuff, then you kind of gone, if I do that, it's too obvious. That it's on the nose. It's I can really think. But what happens is, because of that tung, 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 with the things, she's getting lost. She's not standing out at all. So I think you need to kind of just move your vantage point possibly just a little bit. Something else I think would benefit this image is a far more shallow depth of field. It would certainly help isolate her from the images, and it would, I feel, break down the more obvious parts of the photograph that are somewhat distracting. So when you have her, when she's kind of like isolated, that you're sort of going, this is a swirly whirly thing of snow and snow and this kind of weather makes you want to be tight and insulated, and I think bringing that into play would certainly be a lot better than being able to see. I can see figures in the background. I can see a lot of other sort of somewhat slightly distracting aspects to this. I like the fact that you're down a bit low. That there is sort of you've gotten off the eye level, but it feels like you haven't made the most quite of where this image should be. And I appreciate it was probably very cold when you photographed this. So maybe you don't want to hang around too much. But I think that there's either you can carry on down this route that you're going, and just sort of tighten up the compositions a little bit, or try something completely different. And you've got the flyover, the bridge, what have you, and then there's this row of streetlights, and they're intersecting, is to change your vantage point so they are kind of like coming in and going out rather than straight lines, and actually photograph people in more or less the same scale that we're at now, but when they're underneath the bridge. Right, somewhere like that, and I think that would kind of, you know, maybe give you a little different perspective on those sort of things. But again, kudos for you being out in the cold, because yeah, I don't mind cold so much, but if it's snowing like that outside, I'm just like, I'm gonna sit at home. So well done for getting up. Okay. Alright, so how is everybody doing? We got to look at that. Look, lots of lovely flowers today, which is always very nice. So you know why I'm doing this. You know why I'm doing this. It's because that glass of water, vase, whatever you want to call it, is beautiful. I love it. It's almost like a charcoal sketch. It's wonderful. The daffodils in there are beautiful. The surface you have put them on is horrendous. I'm sorry. What do you think? Yeah, it's that surface is doing you no favors. It is really, really distracting. I'm sorry if you're looking for some sort of you know, sort of interplay between the roughness and things like that. It is just, yeah, that surface is really, it is all the hard work that you've put in with all of this has been just, it's been pooed on, to use my 4-year-old's language, by that surface, you know, the countertop, whatever it is that you're photographing on. All the other aspect, I really love. Yeah, the daffodils, they're beautiful. The glass, I know sort of, James has said it looks a little tad solarized and stuff. I don't mind that. I think all of that looks really great. This countertop, and it's not even like we're talking like a little bit of things. Now, it may be, as I've been saying this, it may be that you were in a restaurant or you're a pub or some sort of street cafe or something, and you saw the reflections on here and things like that, and in which case you can't really just pick up their table decorations and move off with them. So I'm not going to be too full on, right? But so if that was the case, then well done for seeing the options in front of you. I think that was really, really well done. If that is not the case and you put this vase wherever it is, I think it's 5 minutes on the naughty step for you, because you know what you're doing here. You know what you're doing, then you should know that surface is not doing you any favors. Yeah, go and buy a new slab. But I think looking at the positive things, yeah, well done for seeing this. This is great work. Yeah, really, really nice. Yeah, it's just that surface is really, it's letting us down. It's a shame. But yeah, more of the same from a technical thing, but less of the surface. And yeah, daffodils. So yeah, they're out of season now, so you're gonna have to wait until next year. All right, so here we go. So there's a guy walking with his little birdie, his little statue there, and all sorts. You know, obviously there must be some sort of story in the background, and I kind of, I sort of see where you're going with this. That it's a bit of layering and things like that. I have to say that I'm not. Sorry, I was going to just say I'm not a huge fan of the framing. The framing's not the problem here. I think what is lacking, there's lacking. Not, I won't say not sort of some sort of drama, but some sort of feeling, a mood, anything. At the moment, it doesn't really have a personality. The photograph it's I won't say it's flat throughout, because it's not particularly flat, but it doesn't have any kind of like strong tones to it. Not, and obviously given the scene itself, I don't think you would see strong tones. But that's kind of part of the problem, is that the lighting is very flat. The image itself is somewhat static, because obviously he is a statue. We know this, that everything seems to be just stationary. I think that's kind of the thing. There isn't one aspect in here that is giving a little bit of dynamism to the image. Now that would be, it could be, just a change of perspective. I know you're kind of framing the scene as well with these trees, but if you kind of change what's happening is then that the house itself, it's kind of just flat, or the building, it's more sort of flat onto us. And if that had been changed, so if we still focus on the statue, that then there's at least a bit of movement going, leading lines or something like that, I think it would elevate the picture just a little bit, because at the moment it's static. My eyes not being led around at all and everything. It's all just very up and down and left to right, and I think you got the right idea, but it's not panning out. You could probably, I think you could probably push this idea a little bit further and added in some sort of either making it extremely static, in which case you need to get rid of the trees, or going completely the opposite direction. I think here it just feels like you have the right idea, but you've kind of put all the elements together in the same way, whereas one of them needs to be different, like a line not being horizontal or something, just to break it up a little bit. It's not a bad shot. It just lacks a little life. I think it's going to sort of say, but I think you when you look back at this, you may look at I get it. I can see that it's too straight. It's too square on. Hello, cows. One cows. Don't photograph me. I haven't signed a waiver. It's like here. Okay, so framing choices and things. I think it's nice to see that tonight, certainly, or this evening, or the morning, or the afternoon, wherever you are, that people are starting to. I'm starting to see more consideration regarding framing within shots and stuff, and that's really, really, really nice to see. And today's theme seems to be incorrect format choices, orientation choices. This image, I get it that you're looking for the trees and bringing up some of their branches, and that's all very, very cool. My feeling with this is that you could more cowbell, that you could have, if you wanted to go that route, that what's happening is with this long up and down sort of look to the image, that what's happening is that because the cows are quite big, they're actually bulls or cows, I'm going to get their bulls, that they are quite hefty and stuff, and they don't really fit with this sort of feel. And the fact that you are shooting from an eye level means that the horizon and stuff in the background of some of the other guys, and there's another bull in there, and the cow shed and stuff, it's all a little bit distracting. If you went landscape format, kept the wide angle thing again, come right down, right, and then shoot up, so the bulls are now like almost on the horizon, and they're like really big. You will still get all those trees coming up, but they will be the bulls themselves will be framed a lot stronger, and the whole thing would be tightened up. Now you're, I think, quite sensibly photographing on the other side of the fence to the bulls, because I live in the countryside, and you don't really want to get into a field with bulls, so you might say, well, the fence is in the way, or something like that, and okay, fair comment. What you could do, obviously, kneel down and put the camera through the fence. I certainly wouldn't, and I will say this to anybody who's watching this and is new to photography, do not ever put yourself in a spot where you could suffer harm, right, by taking a photograph. And this caused like mucking around on waterfalls and, being on train lines. Train lines have trains on them. And it also includes going into fields with livestock. Especially if you're not used to the countryside. Cows are in fields, or bulls are in fields for a reason, right? And you must not go into fields. Anyway, that's my little public safety announcement over, because they can be ferociously bad news to you, and even here in the UK, people often get mauled by cows and things like that. Anyway. All right, so here we go. So a little bit of change of pace with this guy on his phone. I'm assuming taking a picture of another thing while this young girl casts her eye from the past over what's going on. This man with magic thing in his hand. An interesting image. I think I like that you've been aware of the idea of what's going on. Well done. It's always interesting to see these sort of things, and especially given the placement of her, that she is casting her eye both at us and at him through this. Obviously the light. Look, the lighting is what it is. It's this crappy, horrible indoor lighting that. There's nothing we can do. It's every wedding photographer's nightmare. These downlighters that just look like junk, and they give us really horrible color balance as well. Excuse me. Oh, look at that. I'm getting tired. I've had a very long weekend. The light and stuff on here is just. There's nothing we can do about it, right? So that's kind of sort of thing. What we could try, that I would like to see you explore next time you do this sort of thing, is a slightly looser crop. I think the fact that girl is giving us the eye, right, is strong enough that you don't need for it to fill the frame quite as much as you are. As a standalone image, it's okay, right? It's amusing, but I don't think it's a great photograph. It illustrates a point. You're open to sort of things like that. However, having said that, I feel if you were to do a project like this, that if you did a collection of images and they were all in a gallery of people doing what people do these days, which is take a picture of something else just to prove that they've seen it, then we start having something a little bit more interesting, and that's kind of where I think you find the way that people interact with your photographs changes significantly, because you're giving them an idea of the story that you're trying to say. Okay. Right, so we're here on the pier. The pier is here. We're here on the pier. So just a little sort of public service and all that sort of stuff. So obviously with these images, what I do, they are submitted to me through people who are members of the channel, either from a YouTube membership point of view, or who are supporting on Patreon. So every month I do this. We'll go through the images. We'll have some. So some talk about them. Obviously, it's a one-way discussion, unfortunately, given the nature of the medium. But if you are interested in being part of all of this, of having your images critiqued, and also being part of the private membership groups that we have that are beyond the Facebook discussions, then there are links in the description box below. We've got the Patreon and the YouTube membership. If you would like to have a longer half an hour one-to-one discussion about your photography, or we can actually do it back and forth, then there is a link to the website where you're able to sign up, and you can organise a schedule or a session, and we can have a chat about your pictures, or your photographs. Sorry, we shouldn't say pictures, but yes, your photographs, or anything really that that you'd like to talk about in regards to photography. So, speaking of which, I think if whoever took this photograph, if you were, excuse me, I couldn't find my water bottle, so this is my son's newbie speak up. If you were standing here or you're sitting here with me and we were talking about this photograph, I feel you've got the right idea. There's an interesting subject, but immediately the things that leap to mind, or leap to eye rather, there's the boat on the left. It's like half in, half out of the frame, and then there's this car underneath the piers on the jetty. I think you could probably call this a jetty. And unfortunately, they are the first things that you sort of see. So you've kind of, you've recognised a picture, and you go, I want to photograph this subject that is interesting. And the next time that you photograph something like this, I guarantee you, because we have, myself and a couple of other people have also mentioned that the boat and the car are in there, you'll never do that again. So in that regard, don't worry about it. It won't happen again. You'll be aware of the things that are in here. So the question is, how do you avoid this, right? Well, first of all, your composition. I think you've kind of gone, well, there's nothing in the sky, so I'm going to focus more on the stanchions of the pier, and they are interesting because look at the high water mark, so line on them, something going on. But you kind of, when you've done this and you've dropped down, you look in them. Yeah, you brought the cars and the stuff into contention with the image. The cows, Jose, yes, this is going to be live all the time. So anytime that you come back to this link, the video will be here. I was just going to say, yeah, Jose, we had a long discussion about your cows and your bulls, and they also included a PSA. So who knows? But yeah, you were like literally kind of like 5 minutes ago. Anyway. Yeah, so what's happening is you're kind of including down the stanchion, and the car and the stuff is ruining it. What you can then do is you've got two options, right? So if there were loads of clouds in the sky, stuff like that, then you've got, wow, okay, I can do loads of clouds, and that will be because the sky will carry the rest of it. I can move the camera up, and then we don't have to worry about all those other things. In this case, you don't have any clouds. So what you can do is, rather than being like kind of 5 or 10 feet to the left of the pier, get down right close. Get down like literally so you are on the side of the pier. I'm trying to find something to. So imagine this is the pier, right? So you are like looking down the edge of the pier with a wide angle lens or something like that. So the pier is filling the frame all the way down to the boathouse, whatever it is at the end of this pier. And you still get the wonderful concrete, the colours and all sorts of stuff, but at the same time you can cut out all the cars and the boats. On your black and white front, this is very flat. I talked about the picture with the statue. That was very flat, overcast day. There's not too much in here. And I think had that image been contrastier, it would have just felt weird. This, on the other hand, because because of the nature of what you photograph, you can afford to be a bit more contrasty, and that I think would give the image a little bit more punch. At the moment, it just feels like it's desaturated, like you've taken the color out, and the rest is just. It's kind of wishy-washy. Now this is not a rare occurrence. This often happens, but I think with this, once you get close and stuff like that, and being a little bit more punchy and stuff with the processing, this then starts becoming a far stronger image with that. So well done for seeing it. A couple of sort of rookie mistakes, but you won't make them again. And I think trying to be a bit, explore a subject, explore it a little bit more. Okay. Okay, right. So here we got Stephanie. Yeah, don't you hate it when you go looking? You go, oh, I'm going to go and get a bottle of water or something for my live stream, and then no bottles to be had. So you end up with with your son's juice bottle. So here we go. So we got Stephanie, and the immediate thing is that jumps out at me is that from a lighting point of view, it's fairly sound actually. I don't know how much experience you have with with strobes in the studios and things like that. But the lighting's kind of there's a little bit of sort of side lighting or bit of rim lighting on our left. So where her earring is. Speaking of which, Namo, thank you ever so much. Welcome to the family. That earring, not necessarily clone out the highlights, but sort of take them down just a little bit because they're a little bit distracting. What I feel with this photograph is I think I can get a feel of where you're going. That you're wanting a little less of just kind of like this, hello, right? And you're kind of a little bit more kind of like, oh, I'm not essential sort of thing, but a bit more attitude, sort of, yeah. And I don't know what she's done with her hands. I can't quite see. That's what she's doing. Yeah, so she's doing this. So it's maybe kind of like I'm looking for this framing thing that you. Oh, sorry, I've been rubbing on the mic. Yeah, I'm looking for this framing thing and stuff like that, and it's not quite working. Probably because the crop is very close on this, and given the nature of her pose, I don't think it works necessarily for this kind of crop, especially given that when we are so close to a subject like we are with this, nobody wants to see up your nostrils. That's it. It doesn't. You can do arrogant, but you can't do this. You can't. Oh, he says you can't see up there. So it's kind of unfortunately. She is. She's attractive looking woman, and stuff. But it's her nostrils that are kind of like there, right in the center. So I think if you pull back, they become less dominant. But it also means that you can have this kind of arrogance without having to go right up like that. And it would also fix this little thumb that is just on her chin. It's like a little orphan thumb that's coming off of the frame. They always just, they really, stuff like that kind of is a bit much. I'm not going to make too much comment about the skin, because it looks like it's sort of makeup and stuff like that. Just on my side, it feels like you've the bits where there's this side lighting that's coming in. There's something going on with that skin that it's quite rough. It's probably because that light's picking up. That light is probably shooting across the side of her, which means that it's actually it's exaggerating the texture of her skin. Which isn't quite doing any favors. Again, if you're less tight on the crop, it becomes less of an issue because it's relatively smaller in the frame. So these are all kind of sort of things to sort of consider. So yes, and I would say also one of the very minor things is that light's a little bit, even though she's got her head up, that light of her, the main light feels it's a little bit far away. I don't know. There's something going on that it might be because her hair is in front of her face, but that catch light looks like it's a little bit. The light feels like it's a bit high, but then again, looking at the shadows, it's not. So maybe it is just the hair. But yeah, I think the bigger thing with this is that it needs to be further away. And Vincent says, "Is she about to be strangled?" And that's kind of thing. Yeah, when we can't place the hands with her, make a connection. Our minds can wander into some weird places. Hands are always difficult in portraits. Always difficult. There we go. All right. So we got So we got so a large face with only just a few hands to loads of hands and no faces, which is sort of interesting. Now, the thing immediately that I am missing with this photograph is context. I know it's rugby, but there's a lot of people who won't, and that's the problem. For a lot of people, there's no context to this. What is going on? Why is this a sport? Is it is it some sort of weird tradition? Is something it's a moment, and then it looks like there's a ruck going on here or something like that, and it's raining, and I think there's so many things that you can look at. That this seems to be it's an image that's not quite. It's not quite there. It feels like it's an image that's part of a story, right? What I would love to see with this kind of thing, and you obviously were standing there at the match, is I want to see some focus. I want to see some passion from these girls, right? They are playing what is traditionally a man's sport, right? And they are in the mud and the rain, and it's physical and stuff like that. And how hard is it going to be? They must be exhausted. Get them at a line out. Get them when they're about to scrum or something like that. Get a human element in here. Right now, I'm not seeing it. The closest I can get is somebody mentioned about the arm going on to number 1 from the girl in the blue jersey. She's starting to show us something, and I appreciate this is difficult because obviously you're on the sidelines and they may be rucking on the other side of the field, but you get low, get in there, all these sort of things. Get one of the girls. Black and white would I think work here. You could do a sort of a gritty kind of thing, but let's see the faces of the girls. Let's see the passion. Let's see their strength. And I'm not talking about from like a mannish kind of thing. I'm talking about the strength that all athletes have inside, and the commitment to being out there in the rain and the mud and the physicalness of this. Because if you're not familiar with rugby, it's like American football, but without the armor. So there is no body armor in this. You just smack into each other. So it's a physical commitment. There's all sort of things, but. Yeah, I just feel if you go like back into the great sports photography, like the Tony Duffys and stuff like that. Look at what they do with rugby, and see what's kind of lacking from this picture, which is the human element, and see how they include it in there. I think, and people keep saying about the jersey grip, and I think that's kind of what you've peeled this out and gone, that's the picture, that's the one. And it's not. I don't think it's strong enough to carry the image by itself. But I'd be interested to see the other frames from this particular match. Okay, so we've got. What have we got? Somebody's stolen your fire extinguisher. It's gone. I like this kind of stuff. This sort of urban sort of degradation. What was once a city, hopes and dreams and things like that. This building's obviously been around for some time. You can see in the brickwork that there were arches that have been knocked out and then door frames have been put in there and stuff like that. My gut feeling with this is that the red sliding door and the fire extinguisher missing, that's the image. The empty door on the left is not really. It's not been invited to the party, right? Let's put it that way. It's just kind of it's gate crashed in here. And if you kind of do this, right, that picture where you got the red door with the sliding thing, because there's so much going on there, right? There's so much history. There's so much patina, to use that phrase that they use in antiques, with the door on the right and the missing fire extinguisher, and the colors and the tones and stuff, all that stuff, and then you contrast that with the door on the left, and it's just it's a blank white nondescript run-of-the-mill door. It doesn't have the thing, the color. Hey Rory, yes, better late than never, man. The door on the right, that's your picture. That's so lovely. I think, you know, you've kind of, it's like you had the picture, and then you've sort of, I think you were probably in two minds. You said, I really like the fire extinguisher thing, and I really like the red door, but if I just concentrate on those, then the fire extinguisher thing is too close to the edge of the frame, and so it feels like it wouldn't be included, and so I'm going to go even wider, and I'm going to include the door. I think that there's times when if you go back to this, that's okay. I mean, you can go right up to the edge of the door, and you've still got a nice composition. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you know, it's adds a bit of tension in there, possibly something like that. But yeah, I think this door on the right is where you're at. That's definitely yeah. It's got. I think you obviously color is the right. Absolutely, color is the right choice here. Again, this might work as a nice sort of series. But this kind of, I think, kind of trying to juxtapose the red door and the white door and stuff like that. It's not coming off for me. It's more, next time you're out photographing, try and focus in on one thing and see how that plays out. You know, spend a day with just one thing, and if it means that some elements are going to be quite close to the edge of the frame or creeping off, that's okay. Then, you know, in this case, because they're quite strong graphic elements, you can say you did it on purpose, so, which you have done. So there we go. See, here we go. Now this, for those of you who were not here earlier, I'll just do a brief recap. We looked at a photograph, and I'll go back to it in case you missed, because it was a little while ago. So this is an image we were looking at in earlier, and it's a lovely sort of thing, but I felt that in black and white it was losing what was really kind of the strong selling point of the image. And now we have this, and this is what I was getting at. The tones of these petals in black and white would look great. The stem, less so, because it's very subtle. It's very lots of little fidgety sort of things. So this is where, you know, so this is kind of where I think, you know, the color would work really nicely. There isn't a whole heap that's kind of, I think, you know, sort of, I won't say wrong, because that's the wrong idea about sort of critique. There's nothing necessarily that is wrong about the image. I like what's going on. The lighting is subtle, it's soft, and obviously when you have small objects, you don't really want to be blasting them with like giant light, you know, harsh light. You need to be mindful that small things are delicate and they're fragile, and the lighting wants to caress it rather than punch it in the face. What you're doing here with the lighting is it's picking out the petals and stuff like that. And the right hand side is gorgeous, lovely. The rim lighting on this petal is fab. The left hand side of the frame, it feels a bit dense, but that's kind of sort of tense. I think this is, looking at this, I think what is I feel could be worth exploring is something that we looked at in the previous flower image, where they've tried something different with the petal, a bit of movement, a bit of something like that. And this one feels like you're trying to be very precise, that you're trying to do a, let's say a very classic still life of a flower. And what's happening is that when you want to do those sort of things, you need to be up here. You need to be on like everything about that image needs to be spot on, right? It needs to be so precise and so focused. because if it's not, then then you're left with a kind of a not a visually flat image, but an image that just doesn't have the same impact because it's not technically perfect. And here it feels like you're kind of in that camp, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I apologize. It feels like you're trying to go for these kind of very precise still lifes. And what's kind of letting you down with this is that while I do like those petals that are bent because they're kind of showing sort of something off, and you know, and changing up the mood is a bit of an unexpected thing, it doesn't quite fit with me for some reason. I don't know why. And again, this is where we dip our toe into the murky water of objectivity in critique. That it's not. There's something about it's not right. It's not so right that it's right, and it's not so wrong that it's wrong. I wonder if you're not familiar with excuse me, with Robert Mapplethorpe's Flowers. I would suggest you maybe have a look at some of his, or you go even further with this and go look at Renaissance sort of paintings and things where they are doing still lifes of flowers and fruit and things like that. That everything is just so. And I think the reason why I'm thinking this is not just so, it's not quite right, is that the crop is quite tight. The more that I look at it now, this kind of tightness of a crop feels like it wants to be more stylized. Stylized might be the right word. So you're really focusing on the stem and these bent flowers. So really kind of anything that's extraneous to that. So all the stuff on the left and all the stuff on the right just crop out, right? So you've got this square in the image of this kind of wonderful fan of the petals, and there's this green, almost like an arrow that's kind of to the bottom of it, and then those four odd petals at the bottom. Then it starts becoming a little bit more than the sum of its parts. But if you're going to go like this and be more sort of classic, then I think you want to be further back. You want to show the flower in a little bit more of its environment. So make it a little less dominant in the frame. It's just one of those things. I think, and I think maybe when you revisit these images and you look at them with now you've heard this, that you might hopefully get that feeling that it's not close enough to be close enough, but it's too close to be far away, which sounds like an awful sort of thing. But I think you're kind of in that kind of murky water where you've got the right ideas, but you're not quite sure about. You haven't gone far enough in on the focus. I think that's kind of the thing. But having said that, I think if it was a tighter crop in the square, that's what it, because technically with the light and all that sort of stuff, yeah, great. So I hoped all of that wrap made sense. Okay, so here we are. So talking about sort of wider spacing on crops and things of that nature. If initially when I saw this image, I was like, is he supposed to do? Has it turned this thing sideways? And then the title is called Vertical Jesus. So obviously, yes, it's supposed to be like this. Now, this image would not work at all if we were kind of cropped in quite close to him, because we wouldn't feel the hanging in air vibe. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. The immediate thing that sort of grabs me is that I think I think you've got an interesting approach, an interesting idea, and all that sort of stuff about so playing with perceptions and perspectives. From a purely technical point of view, the window at the bottom, I think it just, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. I think this picture would be a lot stronger if that window was just gone, right? Because you've got a very straight up and down. And also there's an empty cup at the bottom. From a second point of view, and I know this can be a somewhat sort of obviously contentious issue is that I and if you disagree with me, obviously that's entirely fine. I find that if you are on the street and you are photographing people and they are awake and they are they are not necessarily 100% aware of you taking photographs of them, that they are on the street and that they are kind of that they are, there's an expectation that they could be photographed because they're in a public space. For somebody like this, like what we just call it, somebody who sleeps rough is probably the way of saying it. I feel this is a little bit opportunistic, and I feel if you were doing a series on this person, right? So say like a Mary Ellen Mark was doing stuff with Tiny and all that sort of things. That you are kind of, I think then I think there's a bit more of a connection with the person. Or if this was a series about people who do sleep rough, and how the world goes on around them when they are not awake. I feel this. It just feels like there's something about this man, and maybe it's because there's something about this man that I can't quite put my finger on. It just I feel like it is just there's something, and maybe it's because of this crop, the way that you have shown it. I get a profound sense of empathy with him for what reason I don't know, and this is kind of where I think where the waters of these kind of things become very muddled and become very grey and murky. Now that's why you go back to that window, the window, but yeah. I don't know. There's something about it, and not to say that you shouldn't. I mean, obviously, you must photograph however you want, but there's something about it. I just can't quite put my finger on that is the thing, and yeah, it's a thing I can't quite put it on. But anyway, I think I did this. If photographs are supposed to provoke a reaction in somebody and make them think about things, then you have certainly succeeded on this case. All right. So now this person. So talking about people who are not necessarily engaged. He's right there. Context. We mentioned context earlier, and I love the cowboy. I love this. He's in action. He's focused on roping that steer and doing all the things that cowboys do. But I'm not feeling this one. I'm sorry. I think the crop is wrong. And we're not seeing enough of that steer in front of him. It's not a picture of the cowboy, and it's not a picture of the roping of the steer. It's like like that phrase, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. This is like kind of half a dozen of one and 6 of the other. Like Ed is talking about the Marlboro man, that sort of thing. So the focus there was the man, right, and the thing and stuff. And I think if this photograph, if you hadn't had tried to include some foreground context with the steer, right, then it would be a better image, because you would then be concentrating on the one thing that's carrying the photograph. Because at the moment you're trying to juggle two things. You're trying to juggle the steer and the man. And so if you gave him, he's in action, he's in motion. If you gave him some space to go into by photographing horizontally, you could also then allow yourself to, I think, come a little bit lower, because, and I appreciate that he is moving and he's doing sort of things, that hat is blocking his eyes, and it's such a tiny little thing, but I think it takes away from him, because he's not stylized enough to represent a feeling, right? Like the Marlboro man represented a thing, a vibe, right? Because there was nothing else in the frame. So he's not really able to do that because there is, the guys behind him, and there's another horse just going, horse, So there's lots of other things competing in there. So yeah, I think next time that you're there, think about what it is that you are photographing. Is it the man, or is it the cowboy, or is it the roping? Right, because you've got here the title, Roping a Steer. Then, okay, well, let's see more of the steer. At the moment, the only thing to suggest that this is actually a cow is tiny little horns on the front, and, there's not too much. So I feel like you're kind of, again, we're talking about the pedal, you're kind of in this murky area in between that doesn't quite add up. But again, you guys, you have so lucky to have all these sort of things. We don't have steers here in the UK, and cowboys. We've got farmers who you don't know. They talk at one word an hour. I don't know. And they drive man-killed tractors and stuff. None of this kind of cowboys, sort of thing. But anyway, love. Okay. All right. So here we are. And again, it's funny how these things always have like a theme and like a kind of a vibe that runs through these meetings. Yes, welcome to this meeting, to these chats. This is a lovely. I think you've used the framing correctly here, and this feels like it's getting into more of a pano feel. So great idea. I think there's. I haven't mentioned Alex Webb tonight, so I'm going to mention him now. This reminds me of Alex Webb. The inky shadows, stuff like that. Great work, love it. My initial thing is that you've done such a good job recognizing the shot, the girl's in the right space, walking the dog, it's all lovely. That little buoy, jetty marker, pier, whatever, breakwater thing is great. I love that. There's this swooping promenade, whatever you want to call it, is awesome. The White House at the end of the thing where her eyes being drawn is just, no, that's not. Nope. It's breaking the whole artist thing, and somebody, I think Charles has said that it reminds him of a Hopper picture, and he's right. I think in many respects, it's that white building at the bottom that is it just ruins the whole vibe. We can have a square crap. Yes, let's have a square crap. So with this Warren talking about sort of thing. I don't know. Andreas there says that the left 30% is not really working for him and stuff like that. I actually feel it does. I feel from my own sense that. Sorry, I've just noticed something here. We'll get to in a second. That it gives a sense of scale, sort of wow, sort of size, a big sky kind of sort of thing, and that sort of encapsulated by the way that this shadow sort of looks. There's just when I've been talking, and I've just been doing this because that was me wondering if it's not my thing. I don't know if you can sort of see that. Let's have a look. Don't think it's anything on. I just in the middle here, like just here where my little loop thing has gone up. It feels like there's a very light dust mark, which is like slap bang in the middle of the center. It may because that's why I'm doing this. I thought maybe it's something on my screen, but I don't think it is. Just double check your sensor. It feels like there might be a big lump of dust in there, especially which will start showing up when you start shooting at very small apertures, like 16, 22s and stuff. Yeah, there's definitely something there. I was saying is if somebody else can see it, then it's definitely there. But yeah, I do like this. Yeah, but yeah, it's that white building that I can sort of see that. Yeah, it's definitely through there. One of the ways that you can double check this is photograph something blank, like some white paper or something like that, at f/22, or as small as your lens will go, so you know as much depth field as you possibly can, and then look at that on Photoshop or something like that, and you'll see those spots, and then you'll be horrified. You'll go, my God, my sensor is filthy, and then you realise that you only really sort of see these things when you have shots like this. But yeah, I would recommend maybe you go and get it cleaned if you can. But I like this. I know the jury's out. I like it, but it's that white building. But again, I like where you're going with this. I like the ideas. And again, you know, sort of here, so it's interesting, you know, people, I think, you know, we're starting to get a little bit wider with things, so that's always nice. How are we doing here? This is how we 4 time, okay, because I'm also mindful, I've been waffling. Yeah, one of the reasons why, you know, we did this, it might be, it may be, but anyway, yeah, so here, I think, you know, this again, nice. Okay, nice that you're starting to see things, and sort of, you know, I think being a bit more daring with images, rather than you know, trying them out for you know, just for the sake of doing things. I must say I'm not sold on the cyclist, but I understand why he's there. I feel if you're going to try this kind of approach with your image, that I would like to see you try a number of shots that have sort of similar things, and working back and forth through all your photographs, that try these bold compositions where where you are only working on the tree or whatever other subject you want, and then add in elements like the cyclist, like that. Because I think what's, you know, we talked about the steer. There's a couple of elements, and I think you've got the right idea here. You're going in the right direction, and you're kind of going, what can I add? And there may have been these people walking past, and cyclists and stuff like that, and you've gone, well, that will elevate the picture. And in that regard, I think, you know, you're quite right, to try and push the picture through. But it feels like this is not quite right. I think that tree is probably a little bit close to the edge of the frame. The cyclist, he's not in the middle, and he's not off to the left. He's sort of in this kind of limbo-y sort of area along that horizon, and it just feels like he's got his arm out, which I know kind of, it shouldn't distract, but unfortunately it's a little thing like that is making my mind spend a lot of time on it. Does he have his arm? Is he signaling to turn left? And it's distracting from the picture itself, which is unfortunate. And it just goes to show that sometimes how it can be the most inconsequential little thing that makes people just unsettled with a photograph. And what we should be doing is looking at this going, well, I think the composition is not quite right. And I also feel that the treatment of the cloud and the sky is, or the sky itself, you're losing a lot of detail in in the cloud. And unfortunately, I think had you had the detail, if you forget the cyclist for a second, and working on the exposure to create not only, you know, is a proper exposure across the image, then have actually detail in the cloud. The cloud, can be more of a compositional element, whereas at the moment it's not really. And if it were to be, it would be very obvious that it's not quite right. So I think, you know, if you photograph this in RAW, go back and see if you do actually have any detail in that cloud. Try and bring the cloud into play, because if the cloud's in play, and I'm just going to move this chat box because it's on top of that. So if the cloud was on play and it's, let's say this is the cloud and this is the tree that's then touching the cloud and that's the floor, then you've actually got like this kind of weird thing, and you don't need the cyclist. So, you know, it's kind of interesting thing. But yeah, go and see if there's some detail in that cloud. We lost the shadows tonight. Right, so we've got here, it looks, I don't know, who knows what this is? Is it a subterranean thing? Is it a tower? Could be anything. And of course, I think that's the beauty of the shot, is that we don't really know. We're not quite sure, you know, what's here. Not a whole heap to say. I think beyond. I like the fact you've seen it, and I like whatever you're doing with the treatment around the edges. I'm not often a big fan of just solid black, but I think in this case it works because it is so. This is, you know, it's like a strong sort of graphic element, and then there's a sense of mystery, right? A disconnect. We're not quite sure. Is it subterranean? Is it a tower? You know, that's kind of the thing. The fact that it is in color, I feel is right here. There's something that is right about the color, and the fact the sky's burnt out and all that sort of stuff is perfectly suitable for this. This is kind of one of those sort of weird images where there's not a whole heap more to say. Look, you know, you could do this and you could prove it in that way, what have you. Beyond, I think it would be. I think it's again a series with someone like this as a standalone image. It's kind of like, okay, well, it's interesting. I've you know, what you've got here, I'm not quite sure what's going on, but it doesn't hold my attention for that long. And I think that's unfortunate about these kind of images, is that there isn't anything that I can revisit. Now, somebody said about like a face peeking down or something, you know, something from in that regard, but I think that would be wrong. I think, you know, that would be too on the nose, something like that. But yeah, I think it's one of those pictures that is, you know, it's not awful, it's not great, but it's an interesting photograph, and I think, you know, well seen for the potential of what's there. I'm sorry, that's not a particularly groundbreaking critique, but I think you've done a good job. And I would probably suggest if you could explore more sort of industrial sort of places with this kind of idea in mind, would you know, work quite nicely. Yeah, somebody has talked about the highlights. They're a little bit specular. I don't mind it so much. I think it also gives a little bit of, at least a little bit of a visual marker somewhere for our eyes to go. Okay. Oh, lovely colours. Yeah, so this is, you know, we were talking about colour. I think that if going right back to the beginning, you know, somebody was talking about. You know, we were talking about the image of the very cold sunset, and how the focus was too much on the foreground and what have you. Now here we've got something going on. So this image has been flipped upside down. So the reflection of the lake is the sky, and the sky is the bottom, which doesn't always work. It has to be said. But here I quite like it. I think if you're going to do this sort of thing, you need to be careful about when you do it. And the only two things that I feel distract from this particular image with doing this technique are this little chap here and this little chap here. They look like they're little stanchions out of the water or something like that. Obviously you can't as I said in a previous one, where everybody's went, oh, you know, you can't, they're like 20 feet away and you can't get there and stuff. A little bit with those, just, you know, a little bit cloning out would make the picture stronger. But I like the colours, and I like the fact you've seen something different and what have you. And I'm you know, I can't really see this because I've got these lights on my face. It doesn't. It's a bit tricky to see. I think I would like to see just. I'd like to see maybe like half a stop brighter. Just, yeah, at the moment it's really nice, but it just feels like it's just a little bit dark, just a scooch, and that's why I said, excuse me, just a little bit lighter. So obviously it's a late evening. It's, you know, one thought it was early morning. Who knows? But it feels like it's late evening, and that broad swathe in the middle of, you know, the edge of the lake, with the palm tree and all sorts of stuff. It just feels dark. It feels oppressive. Whereas I see this and I think Florida, and I think, you know, like swampy, humid, you know, like, and the colours that come to mind are bright and you know, and not necessarily because obviously it's the wrong time of day, but there's a vibrancy to them. And what's happening is you've got this wonderful sky with the storms and all this sort of stuff, because it looks like there's a storm cloud brewing here, and yet we're losing those colours that can be really. And if you live in Florida, where I lived in South Africa, had similar weather to Florida, so I know these skies, they can be broody and dark, but still vibrant. And this is kind of what I think is lacking in the image here. But you know, I do like it, and at least we've warmed up for now. We were talking about cold things earlier. All right. Okay, so doggies hungry for tea. God, my dog is hungry for tea. First thing that really just leaps out is that I thought that lady had like some sort of a pipe or a cigarette in her mouth, or she was holding something. It's, sorry, that's the first word out of my mouth, but it's that, yeah. If you're going to do these kind of pictures, you know, if you're going to do, let's call it loosely documentary stuff about, you know, what's going on in the house. This is obviously the dinner's having, you know, you know, the lady is making a ham and she's putting some pineapple on it and stuff like that, and the dogs are kind of like, what a piece of that. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, but yeah, what's happening is I think you've gone, oh look, I can frame her head in that window, and that's kind of great, and you've gone, that's really clever, and you've forgotten that that tap is sticking out of her mouth, which is a shame. You know, it's a real sort of thing. You know, so if you're kind of new to this kind of this approach, and you're photographing in the house of things, and what you've got here is this classic idea of like, I like what's going on. I like, oh, you know, it's funny, the dogs are looking at, you know, let's say, I don't know if it's your wife, but let's say it's my wife, you know, making a roast ham, and thinking that like, oh, that's the picture, and yes, it is, but that is not enough to carry the picture. You then need, as the person who's seen this, to push it forward, to go, right, what can we do? What would happen, rather than, because your wife, again, I don't know if it is your wife, but let's just say it, right, she's not the focus of this picture. She's absolutely, the focus are the three dogs and that ham, right? The fact that she is there, well, okay, the fact she's there means that they haven't eaten, right? Go around the other way, right? The ham, and then the dogs looking at the ham, because that's what the shot is. The shot is not the lady doing the ham with the thing coming out of her mouth. Because that's what this shot is at the moment. It's that you need to go around the other side of the table, get the dogs to be the subject, right? It shoots through the lady's arms, shoot through them, and use them as a frame for the doggies. And if they are your dogs, you could, you kind of know how they behave, and you know all sort of their quirks. So try that next time. Good job for seeing the possibility of and this is kind of a great example of, you've got an idea, but you're not quite sure how to execute it. But yeah, It's looking good. And now I'm feeling like gammon and pineapple and cheese for dinner, which my wife isn't a fan of, but tough. I'm the one who cooks in the house. All right. Here we go. So we've got some eyes. We're talking about eyes. So above, So here with this picture, it's just really straight on. The crop is too close. I'm sorry to say. You don't need to be this close. You don't need to be like right here when you're doing these kind of direct to image shots, right? I can talk to you like this and like really in here and still make a connection with you because I'm talking straight at the camera, right? And you don't need to be close to give that to give that intensity to the photographs. She's got a lovely expression. There's a story here going on behind her eyes, which is so often lost. But because you are so close to her, you're not giving her, this young girl, enough space to breathe, right? You don't have to come back a lot. You don't have to have her like miles away. But we want a bit of closeness. I don't mind if you crop bits of head or something like that. That's okay. But she feels like it's too close. It feels like she's just here, and I think about one of the things is, and if this is your daughter, then this is super, or somebody who this is super easy to do. Just, sweetheart, look, just move that, right? Can you just, you don't even need to touch. You can say, can you just do this, right? And she'll get those hairs out of her eyes. If it isn't somebody who just kind of go, oh, I love this, those naughty hairs. Can you just move those naughty hairs? Right? And she will just do this. In fact, that's probably a better way to just do that. Just get them to run, say, and with young kids, you need to show them what it is you want them to do. Can you just do this with your finger? Right? And that will save all of that. I don't mind the one on her right eye is fine. This one all over the cheek, her left cheek is too much. But yeah, come back a bit. Give a little space, and the light is all behind you, so that's really nice. It's lovely, soft. I do think it feels like it's a bit muddy, so it's a little bit flat. So it's kind of a little boost in Lightroom. Somebody said about color. Yeah, I think it would be nice. Yeah, give it a try. So see what it's like. Black and white isn't. It's not always the best option, especially for somebody who's got dark eyes like this. Black and white and dark eyes, sort of like browns and very dark greys and things like that, can make their eyes just pools of inky blackness, which is not necessarily a good look, especially in a kid. And my son has brown eyes, so I really wish he didn't, because it makes my life difficult. Here we go again. We're talking about brown eyes, dark. So this image is too dark, right? I know what you're going for. You're going for this moody, and he's got this great expression. He's got that moody expression. But this image is too dark for me. It puts me in mind of, and if you've not seen The Exorcist, then you won't know what I'm talking about. But for those people, there's a face in the background. The more recent horror movies do this, with like a very just indistinct face. This reminds me of that. Because this is not that kind of effect you're going for more of a kind of like a strong, mysterious kind of look. You kind of, it's underexposed, right? You don't have to make things dark to make them mysterious. And I think what's happening is when you're underexposed, especially with darker skin tones, they go to black really quickly. All right, and so what happens is you end up with a kind of weird contrasty but not contrasty image. And that is unfortunate, because I think he's got a great expression. I think this would be better in black and white. Quite frankly, I know we talked about the eyes, but his blue shirt. Next time with this, be a bit brighter. Just a lot. I'm not talking about blasting it, but have at least a little bit more there, because what you can do is then you can make his face a bit brighter and have a little bit of detail that would just kind of stop it being a little bit so, I don't know, like somebody's just kind of like taken a sheet of very dark film and put it over the image. It doesn't quite work. So yeah, so be more brave to kind of push through, just a little bit. I hope all of that made sense. Yeah, it's just a little bit underexposed. And now, now we've got to the other extreme. It's how do you guys get together and like talk to me about these, talk to yourselves about these things before we get in there. So here we go. Again, I think the scene is interesting. It's a nice sort of idea and what have you, and I can see where you're going with it. What I'm finding is from my screen here is that obviously the sky's not going to have any detail. And the fact that the snow can have not so much detail is also okay, but I think certainly the snow in the trees, the treetops especially of the firs, or not the firs, the more bushy trees in the middle, they have gone away. There's no detail in the highlights, which means that they are kind of they're very gone. Which is a shame, because I like this sort of look and stuff like that, but I feel that in trying to have this kind of very reduced black and white image, and by that I mean white and black, that you kind of lost something. And given that I have struggled with these also in the past when I've tried to do it, because I recognize the sort of images. I think you're thinking like some Michael Kenner stuff and what have you. That you think, well, that seems relatively easy, but then you come up against it. You're like, no, it's so tricky with the exposure. I think what's letting this one down, first and foremost, is the exposure beyond anything else. And the only way that I could sort of off the top of my head make a suggestion about this is that I don't know how you've exposed it, but I think what's happening is that given the nature of the scene, if you are exposing this through your camera, that camera has no idea how to deal with this at all, right? It's like, I don't really know. So maybe you've gone into RAW and then you sort of play with it, but the base image is wrong. This is where having like an incident meter or something like that would be beneficial, because these kind of situations, these scenarios, these lighting scenarios are really going to play havoc with a camera's built-in meter, because it's trying to make everything zone 5. Yeah, so I think that's probably next time if you're able to do this, get an incident meter. They're not very expensive, but then you can take an ambient reading of everything, and at least then I think you're going to get a base exposure. It's a bit easier. It's not so. It's high key. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's if it's not snow. Well, I tell you what, you're a brave man trying these things. I think some of the basic ideas still hold true, which is that some of the places where our heads are going, I want some detail, is being lost. And I know you're saying it's pushed over the limits by intention and that's fine. You know, that obviously you can experiment, and I remember somebody when I printed through it doesn't matter. Do things by intent, absolutely. The problem that we've got here, because even though you are trying things with intent, is that it's not quite landing, because it feels like it's sort of a mistake, I'm afraid to say. I know some people would like it. Warren has suggested increasing the blacks. I think that might be a way through, is to give a little bit more density in those blacks. I think this is a work in progress. I think it's a work in progress. You've got an idea that you're running with, and I applaud you for doing that. I think it's really good that you're testing out some boundaries. You're going beyond the obvious. There's somewhere. I think the fact that it's in the middle of the tree line, right here in the middle of the frame, that in the middle of the tree line, the tops of the trees have disappeared into a white. That it's kind of breaking it. It just feels like it's breaking it a little bit. And I'm not talking about like having major depth, but just filling in very light charcoal. You see the tree line in the background is this light charcoal-y kind of thing, which is lovely. those bits in the middle, not so much. But yeah, I think work in progress. Think about it with those kind of ideas in mind, and then start thinking about your compositions and stuff. So rather than trying to do them all at the same time. All right. Okay. So lovely lighting here. Nice time of day. This is what we were talking about. Great illustration of those ideas that where you have a darker background, it makes the colors more saturated, vibrant, stand out. Lovely, because you've got some contrast between them. So it's a great time of day. Again, you've got these storm clouds, lovely color. I'm afraid, though, I don't like your composition. It's that horizon with the you've got this tree, and then you've got the two aloe cactuses in the background. They are really distracting, especially against that black background. Go down low it down, make this thing a bit more. Ansel Adams does a lot of this kind of stuff, or did, where he gets a bit lower on cactuses and things, but he puts them up on a horizon because it separates them from the noise in the background, so like those other cactuses and stuff like that. And but I love the feel that you've got here with the lighting, but it's the horizon that's kind of not doing it for me. And if I'm going to be really panicky and fidgety, this dry scrub here, like these McGufters here, that's dead brush. Go in there, pull it out, just get rid of it. I don't mind, all this scrub is fine. These here, because they're in front of the tree and stuff, you just pop them out. But go lower, and the format is right, and the day is lovely, and the lighting is wonderful, but you're being let down by that background that is interfering, and just kneeling down would have changed the perspective completely. So there we go. I don't mind the cloudy. Jack has said that he finds the clouds too dark against that. It depends. That kind of lighting I've seen a lot in real life in South Africa. So yeah, I won't say it looks entirely natural, but that's part of the thing. Often it doesn't. So here we go. So this is very interesting. So we've got some state park regulations. This I don't know why this puts me in mind of like some older thing. Maybe it's because telephone. But interesting photograph. We've got a wicker chair and the phone and stuff like that. What I'm kind of feeling here is, again, you've seen an image, and there's an element that's lacking, I feel, in this, and it's not, because you've got the telephone, you've got the wicker chair, and then, so from that regard, it could be any period. But then, of course, we can see the stuff, and it's got some COVID things in there and what have you. I feel, earlier I mentioned there were two photographs, and the wicker chair I feel is one. I think that's something, and the telephone one is something else. I can see where you're going with this, and I know, I think the way you've handled the post treatment, this odd washed out film look, I've got no problems with. I think it suits what you're photographing here. These things. We talked a lot today about series, like series of images. And this feels again like it would be stronger as part of a series, or a body of work that explores this kind of feeling, not necessarily state park way houses or whatever you want to call them. But there's something about this that I would have been drawn to the chair with the shadows and all that sort of stuff, and you've kind of got, no, I've got the chair, but I'm going to sort of half in there with the telephone and things like that. And I think this is, in the UK, there's a thing called Marmite, which is a yeast-based spread, and their marketing thing is either you like it or you don't. And this is a kind of image where I think falls into this Marmite category, and it's not that I don't like it, because the more I sit with it, it intrigues me in a way. I don't think there's necessarily something you would go, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that, because that's going into realms of like how I would photograph it, which is not the case at all. So I kind of look at this and go, well, okay, you've got something going on there. It's interesting. It's something different. It feels like it needs to be part of body work, much like a lot of the photographers from from the sort of the late 60s and 70s, where the Gary Winogrand and the Lee Friedlanders and all those, Stephen Shaw and Eggleston and all these guys, that they all kind of do one thing, right? And but individually their images, you kind of go, oh, I don't really get it, right? But then when you look at all their kind of work as a whole, or a broader stroke, then it makes a little bit more sort of sense. And I think this is kind of what it feels like with this. So in regards to giving it critique, it's very hard to do that, because there isn't a specific thing. You don't go, well, this is wrong, or that's wrong, and whatever. And this is where sort of critique becomes more of a discussion about where feeling comes into play, how things work. It becomes less about technical issues and more about sort of aesthetic ideas. But an interesting image, regardless. And I'd be keen to see more. Right, how are we doing here? How are we doing? Right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Only another 500 images to go. So we're here for the long haul. So here we go. So it's interesting. Yeah, so like a nice little kind of black and white sort of idea. It's quite funny. It's often there's nothing technically wrong with this. Absolutely, nothing is sort of leaping out here. I think it's an amusing idea. What I am kind of seeing is that the image itself. I know I said there's nothing that is technically wrong. It does feel very lopsided. It's kind of the pot plants and the stuff on the left are just it's too much. It's leaning this way and stuff. But interestingly enough, having said that, it creates some tension with the image, because obviously the black is visually dominant, so it's kind of sort of things like that. I don't think there's too much one could add or say that could be done to improve it. I think good job for seeing the image, and actually sort of responding to it. I wonder if you would be able to see this if it wasn't so signposted, and I like to think that you would. So try that next time. Try that next time you're out and about. Try and find these kind of quirky interrelationships between objects that aren't quite as obvious to the layperson, the person who's just kind of casually looking at things. And I think you would be surprised about how much you can actually find out there. But nice exposure, nice handling of the post and stuff like that. The compositions, I think, as I said, it's got this kind of odd sort of vibe to it. But also worthwhile next time you're seeing this, breaking down sort of the singular elements. The lattice work above the windows is very interesting, and by getting into there, you could also sort of do the balance between the two. Okay, how are we doing? All right. Okay, so we've got this here again. Some nice light. Nice light here, and I'm trying to think of not what to say, but how to phrase it, because it's the sort of photograph that I think all of us have taken at some point. That we've seen some lovely light and stuff, and the light is nice. That I feel it's about 10 minutes. You're about 10 minutes late on that. It's just dipped down a little bit too much, so we can't quite see things. But what is kind of what I'm sort of feeling with this is that there's a lot of nothing going on. Which I'm sure if you listen, you go, oh my God, what a terrible thing. There's there's all these stanchions, there's the water, there's the things, there's all these things which are interesting, but put them together and they become right. They haven't landed. The stanchions on the left here, the end of the jetty, right? Look at the way the light is hitting those, and you got the contrast between the water of the lake, which is obviously it's got ripples and what have you, and then you got the water on the right hand side under this kind of it looks like it's a jetty, and the lake has come up and too high, or it's a road bridge, or it's something, right? But obviously there's a gap there, so the water on the inside is calm. Look at the color. Look at the difference between the things. Look at the colors. The jetty house, whatever thing, little cabin. That's an image by itself. So just take that, make that the star. It's too much, right? You've added all these elements which individually would be nice and worth exploring, and put them together, and they've just kind of all gone. Yeah, just. But having said all that, this landscape looks like the kind of landscape that I grew up around near Joburg, and yeah, it puts me in mind of that. So at the very least, thank you. But yeah, next time that you see something like, pick out the things that are what is interesting here. What are the subjects that are worth photographing in this beautiful, wonderful light? And it's not always the things that initially you may think it is. Okay, all right. So we've got this guy. So nice sort of church. I like the colouring on this. The black and white tones and stuff. Really, really nice. Wonderful clouds. It's such an interesting sky. The composition feels not quite right. I feel again. Sometimes, critique for anybody who's watching, sometimes critique like the person previously, it can be very broad strokes. You can say, look, I think you've missed the picture entirely here. I think you've got the right idea, but you need to focus. And then sometimes feedback and critique can be very fine margins, very, very small changes, very incremental bits. And I think this is a photograph. From a technical point of view, it's fine. Right, so both in terms of sort of sharpness and image quality and all that sort of stuff. From an aesthetic point of view, it's good. Nice sort of ideas and those sort of good, but it wants just a little bit of finesse. Just wants a little bit of thing. If you watch cookery shows, as the cookery competition carries on, the things that they want become a lot more refined. Not as each little element needs to be a lot better. This one, the composition feels, the church itself, that it's not quite working for me, right? And that's why I think because there's very strong elements within this church. The time of day is really picking out the church to its best quality. It's wonderfully lit. But because of that, the elements of the church building are very strong, and they need to be handled in a very delicate way. And if I look at this, that cloud is beautiful, right? But we've got all the aspects of the church that are sort of lining up and looking really nice, but they're not quite connecting together. Look at the angle of the pitch of the roof on the right hand side, and then you've got the other pitch, and it's sort of like this, right? Now that the line of that, I know it draws your eye up to the steeple and then up to the cross and all that sort of thing. You know, see how these lines are kind of working together, but bring them so they're more leading the eye through without me having to make one or two visual leaps. And then to really try and get the cross, which is dark and it's against the darker part of the sky, against the brighter part of the cloud. And see how we're now talking about very tiny finessing little bits, but I think on the whole this is really nice, and it's stuff like that. So you could see hopefully that it's see, Russell's like, no, it's the clouds that are wrong. Well, you see how everybody kind of interprets images in their own sense, and it's hopefully where you find a balance between all the feedback that you get from various places and what feels right for you ultimately. I don't think this is infrared, Metropa or Metro PA. This when you like back in film days, if you shot film or black and white film with an orange filter or a red filter, it gave you this kind of feel. So the blues, especially when you have a very blue sky. But yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's infrared. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is sort of JV alert. So we'll put the watermark thing to one side for a second. Yeah. Again, I appreciate, you know, you're at the finish line. You're looking at the sort of things. What I'm not getting from this is any sense of speed whatsoever. Now, the fact that this is named in a certain way suggests to me that this is a shot that you are hoping to sell to people, either you're an event photographer or something of that nature. In which case, yep, okay, I get it, right? That's why it's shot, because people want to buy pictures of themselves that they can see themselves. From an aesthetic and more from a photographer point of view, yeah, there's no speed in here whatsoever. There's no sense of whatever I forget what this kind of horse racing is called, but there's no sense of it. There's no sense of speed that is conveyed by this image because everything is frozen and sharp. If you were to pan blur with this, right, so slightly slower shutter speed, maybe like you know like a 30th or something, and pan through, then we get some of the speed and some of the feeling and the excitement of horse racing. And I know that you are capable of doing that because this is a competently sound technical image. But we want to see that, man. I'm sure everybody's watching this is going, yeah, we've been saying more cowbell, more speed, more speed. You know, yeah, I Bill, you've said, yeah, you couldn't find it. It's fine. That's why we didn't make the sort of thing. But and yes, because you mentioned it is for the client, I do understand, and I also understand how fussily pernickety horse owners can be because the horse needs to be just in the right gait and the right stride and all that sort of stuff. So I get it, and so kind of that's what we sort of sort of think. So from a image, if you are looking to sell these for clients, okay, this horse I'm going to assume just won this race, and that would work sort of fine. As a sale thing, and again, it's as soon as we get into ideas about cropping and things with clients, then it becomes a little bit more pernickety. I would say the one thing that you probably do a bit better with, and it may be tricky, you'd have to sort of figure out how you can do this so it doesn't impact your ability to sell images, is slightly shallower depth of field. The board in the background is too much, and especially since we can see all the paddocking and stuff in the back. So Charles, with people who have horses and just sort of like eventing and show jumping and stuff like that, the horses they are very hot on having the horses in very specific poses. Pose the horse in very specific parts of their gait and their stride. When they buy them, it's like, oh, it's too much, It's like people literally, I know I'm not going to buy a picture because Mr. Snifflepants, his ear is cocked to the left or something. It's just like, yeah. Anyway. Oh, I thought this was on its side for a second. Wow. Very long, very up and down. Very interesting image. Trotsky is the word. She photographed Trotsky down there in this thing. I like this. It's unusual. It's different. I feel there's an element in here that I'm not sure about. That's those lighter reflections, the very light steel grey reflections, one at the top and one about 3/4 down. They feel, you know, I've mentioned this murkiness. They feel like they are in a position where they need to be one or the other. They need to be really pronounced, and I think they could work as being pronounced in this, given the graphic nature of the image, or they need to be gone, in which case we're relying on that very straight up and down solid idea in the middle. Yeah, it's all, yeah, I think. But there's a lot going on here. That again, I've got these sort of things. It feels like there's a figure leaning over and stuff like that. I think great way of seeing interesting images in a setting that I think a lot of people would kind of not see this at all. So I think, yeah, really really nice. It's just, yeah, there's two white panels, you know, the panels, and I know because they're reflections, they may not be the easiest things to get rid of. But if you can't get rid of them, think about how you can use them, right? Rather than, because at the moment they don't feel like they're adding to the image. You know, they don't feel like they're part. It feels like they're intruding rather than you have invited them in. Yeah, I think Russell's talked about maybe, you know, cutting off the top portion over the image or cropping it, and I think you know, it's kind of, it's there again. Lovely. I think, you know, I would like to spend time with you and hear your thought process about seeing these images, because that's really nice. Okay. Right. Peacock. Hello, Peacock. Okay. So immediately, what sort of springs to mind is that I think, well, good on you for not doing the big fan, you know, which is what everybody, you know, would leap to, because the colours are lovely and you know, all the details and the shimmeriness and that iridescence, they are really, you know, a wonderful thing. I think because you have gone in close like this, and because peacocks do have such a strong built-in composition to them, that you need to be spot on with your composition. Now, there's a couple of things here that really, moving around just a little bit. So we're putting the peacock's head contained within that kind of the shimmer bit, right? Because that's what nature is intended. Nature is wanting the peahen to see the face, to see the strut of the peacock. So let's try and keep the head inside that inner cowl, if we call it that. And I think that would tighten up the composition a great deal more. Not if he just kind of shuffled his head down, but you moved around just a little bit just to put the head in that composition. I appreciate also that you can't move peacocks around. It's like a peacock and you can stand over there. But what I do think you would like to be mindful of, we talked earlier about the lighting, about how things become, about how colours become strong when they're contrasted against darker things. The opposite is true. When they're contrasted against lighter elements, then they lose some of their oomph, right? Try and find a peacock that is against a darker background, because at the moment it feels like it's photographed against something that's quite light. So we're losing a lot of what's making this image, which is that colour and stuff like that. So I think, you know, I think you want to see, I think you've got the right idea. You're nice and you're close, but it's just, yeah, again, it's those little finessing sort of parts. And it would also help if you kind of moved a little bit, that it would probably give the peacock a little bit more space to sort of look into. There we go. All right. Okay. So, I've seen a lot of this kind of image recently, which is shots of street scenes that don't really have much to them. They don't really have a. They don't have story. They don't have something that grabs hold of our attention immediately. They're just kind of slightly interesting things that somebody has photographed, right? And I think, you know, I was talking to with Sean Tucker, the very famous Sean Tucker, who's finally we got to chat on a channel. I have linked to it in the comment section or the community post section if you want to go and see. And we talked a lot about this. Is that people who are starting street photography will just photograph basically anything and anything that is remotely interesting. And they kind of feel that old people, they sort of gravitate towards old people, or people who look unusual, you know, street performers, something like that, and think that that's kind of enough, and we'll sort of find reasons why the photograph is kind of, I won't say good, but that they enjoy it. And this is a learning process. This is important to go through this process, because as you do this, you realize that not everything is a photograph. Not everything is worth photographing. And I think we're in this kind of stage here with you, that you are, there's this interesting doorway with the metalwork and all that sort of stuff, but the lighting's kind of there and all sorts of stuff like that. And then there's this old person's walking by with a mask. But there's nothing going on here, all right? There's nothing that has happened that is different. So if you do like the background, right, the door and stuff, wait there, sit and wait until something happens that's a bit more than just somebody walking past in thought. And unfortunately, I can't. Oh, it is infrared. Okay, well there we go. I stand corrected, but there we go. So thank you for clearing that up. So if you didn't see it, everybody, there, Alex was wrong. It wasn't black and white. It was indeed an infrared picture of a church. So thank you, Kevin, King Kevin, for letting us know. Yeah. So this kind of. This sort of image, I think, you know, is important. As I said, you work through these things, and you learn to figure out what it is that you want to photograph. At the moment, I think you're just finding your way. I think you're finding your feet. I would also hesitate. There's something I'd appreciate that I'm looking through many different screens. Your black and whites are like contrasty but flat, and which is the most unhelpful piece of feedback ever. I don't know what it is, but when I say contrasty and flat, there aren't any real nice tonal gradations on here, right? But it's contrasty, right? So you got the flatness, which is there's no tonal gradations, or which is probably totally the wrong way of describing it. But sorry, I've been talking non-stop since 5 o'clock, so I kind of shattered. So you forgive me if I'm using the wrong terminology. But yeah, it's flat, but at the same time it's contrasting. And by that, these black shadows, which are not necessarily a bad thing, but there's something going on. So I think next time you're out and about, think about something specific that you want to photograph when you're out on the streets, and you'll find it gets a lot tighter. So this is what we say about contrast. So this is contrasty for a reason, and it's actually fine because it suits the subject, suits what's going on in this kind of industrial space. Now, what immediately leaps out because of this is that the photographer is breaking down this processing plant, whatever it is, into elements, shapes, forms, and I forget the Germans who did it. I want to say Blücher, but of course that's from Young Frankenstein, and there's a horse neighing somewhere in the background. Belcher. They did water towers and smelters and things like that. And what happens is that you break down industry. Photographers call this industry into distinct shapes, and the lighting here is what's doing that, especially on that smeltery, this pipework in the middle. Now for me, that's where the image is, right? It's not in the office bits and the other kind of built-in things here. It's the middle of this picture, where these spotlights at the top of the framework are rim lighting quite strongly that massive pipes. And I feel that's where you want to be with this photograph is if you're talking, and you've called this industry, right? So think about the images that conjure up the idea of industry. And if you go into like kind of the 1920s, 1930s period and look at sort of photography, say from maybe like the Bauhaus and something like that, so Lazo Moholy-Nagy and people of that nature, that you will see them exploring industry in a way that I think would benefit you looking at. So if you didn't catch me, that was Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. Warren, would you mind just typing that in the comments, because I think that would be a word a name that people wouldn't get. The Bauhaus. All right. Corey, thank you ever so much for being here. I've got about another half an hour to go, I think. But thank you for being here for almost the duration. Yeah, so like the Bauhausy kind of thing. The word I was looking for the belchers, the people who do the smelters and things. But yeah, the Bauhaus is worth looking at. So I think that's kind of where your image is here, is really breaking down industry into its smaller forms, because by doing that you make it bigger, which sounds like a contradiction, but trust me, it works. Hello, stairwells. There we go. All right, so stairwell early morning. Now, I was going to say something here. There's a Mulholly. I can't. Yeah. But thank you, Andreas, for putting it in there. After a while, your mind just goes to mush. I'm sort of getting there. But we're going to bash on because you guys deserve it. Initially I was kind of going, I get this, and I was going to say something, but now I've looked at the image, and I'm actually going to recant the thing that I didn't say, and I'm going to go in a completely different tack, which is this image actually has a lot of mystique about it, a lot of mystery in it. The Beckers, yes, that's it. Thank you, Cassian. I would love one of their books. It's out of my price range, but if anybody wants to treat me, I feel more than happy to. This one's got a mystique. It's got a kind of it does have a strong sense of story, and I'm reminded, probably because I was talking about it another day, but sort of a Dwayne Michaels-y kind of thing. Actually, Bill Brandt. This has got more of a Bill Brandt-esque-ish quality to it. And I find there's something, I'm not 100% sold on the composition. I think the stairwell idea is great, but you haven't included it and you haven't excluded it. It's in that murky middle ground. Again, it's not quite in the right space. But this is the kind of photograph I certainly would have taken as a student and gone, this is awesome, and then be disappointed when other people don't realize how great I was, and I think this is in that kind of vibe. Again, we talk about series so much tonight. I think this works as a nice sort of series, and if you look at Dwayne Michaels, especially Dwayne Michaels, his work is at its strongest when it's part of a series, that there is story, because you're alluding to story here. There is something going on, and this kind of female figure, I'm getting a female vibe from her, that's moving and stuff, but it's not quite, we don't really know what's going on, and certainly the perspective that you've given us is also disjointed, and it contributes to this kind of iffy feeling. The one thing that does kind of slightly destroy all of that feeling is that spotlight in the top of the image. But then again, if you change your composition on the stairwell, then it would kind of alleviate the spotlight issue. But if you've got more of these kind of things, next time we do this critique, send in another one. I would like to see see this, but I think you're heading in the right direction, but you just need to make it a little bit, be a bit more cognizant of that kind of framing that you're doing. Okay. All right, so here we've got some people walking across Westminster Bridge. Yeah, okay, so we're trying something here. And I'm going to make a huge number of assumptions based on this one. The first is I'm going to assume you haven't been photographing for very long. And the reason that I say, actually I'm going to recant, sorry, yes, is this shot on film? If you're in the chat, let me know. This feels like it's shot on film. And if it is shot on film, your film hasn't been developed very well. It's quite a thin-ish neg. The negative doesn't have nice density to it and stuff like that. Anyway, right. So that's a very technical point of view, but it's got that feel. It's got that first-year photographic student feel of I haven't quite processed the film properly and I haven't printed it properly vibe. Warren, I think if you're still around, you might agree with that. So I'm not feeling this picture. I think I feel that you're going with the right thing. You're going, oh, we're going to have people moving, the movement of the city and things of that nature. Unfortunately, what happens is this feels like you were trying to take a picture of the Houses of Parliament and these people just happen to walk past. This is definitely film because I can see they haven't cropped out the top and there's little bits of hair and stuff. Anyway, if you are going to do this kind of thing, then I think what you really want to do is set up a shot. Now, I know this bridge, right? This is for those of you who don't know, this is in central London. You've got Big Ben and stuff. So this is the Houses of Parliament and what have you. Is to find a place where there is a distinct spot. Now, just the photographer will know. If you turn to your right and you go back to the tube station, there's a set of stairs that come up from. I forget the name of the tubes. It's not Bank. Anyway, there's a set of steps come up there, and there's lots of framing, and it's all very nice. Find a spot where these people can walk past you, and you can create a good photograph that these people can walk through. Right, in this method, then it becomes a lot stronger. At the moment, nothing is working in that regard in this photograph. Right, it's not a picture of the House of Parliament because they're half chopped off. Right, it's not a picture of Westminster Bridge because they are. It's two bits of it, right? It's all not quite right. So think about a spot that you can sit in that can give you a good picture, and then wait for people to come through, especially in the tube stations, because nobody's paying any attention. They will just rush out and stuff like that. So give it a try. If this is your first foray into film processing, I think you need to just be a little bit more careful about how you process the film. These sort of weird grey shadows implies to me that there's not quite enough density in your negative, but it will come. There you go. Thank you, Susan. Thank you ever so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, right. So there are, for anybody who's going, oh my God, is Alex going to collapse? There are 1, 2, 3, 4 images, and then Alex will collapse. He'll fall down. So here we go. So some nice, an interesting look on a building. And actually, funny enough, I was going to, in case I ran through this far too quickly. I did bring in some of my own, which I didn't actually bring one that looks like that. Anyway, I'm a fan of this kind of approach. I'm sure many photographic purists will probably say the composition is all iffy, and I do like it, but I feel God, it's your martinis. She's busy putting the child to bed. I can hear him down the corridor. What this image really wants is something in the sky. A plane or something, a contrail, some sort of something to balance out this building, which is why you often find, you know, there's kind of long exposure pictures that people do where the clouds are just like this kind of big spit, because it lends something that balances off against the building. So kind of, if you are able to find things like that, I know you can't put things into the sky, but you know, physically you can't put them into the sky, but do try that. And like the picture with the church earlier, you know, the cloud I felt really lended itself to that. Try and seek out some clouds, and you know, because there are some wisps in there that could work. See how you can play against them. If it's not working at all, break the building down into its form. You've got these blue girders, awesome looking girders. Is there a way you can just actually make the whole picture about the building itself, rather than, you know, the whole other parts? So again, I think you know, you and I have a similar aesthetic sensibility, and I'd like to, just see you. This is kind of like a bit of a nothing picture, but there's a picture here. You can tease it out, see what you can experiment with, and I think the key is those girders, that they're giving you some, especially the blue. The blue is a lovely colour. Okay, right. So I have a feeling I may have critiqued some of your work previously. However, and which in case, or we talked about a very similar picture or something like that. So what's going on here? We've got all this kind of reflections and things like that, and then you know, we've got the guys walking into to a shopping centre or whatever it is. And there's a kind of an interesting sort of play. Now, what I think is happening is, I think you've got the right idea, that you're going with kind of, I want to play with different levels and then really give it not a confusing aspect to it, but sort of throw people a little bit of curveballs and stuff like that. And in doing so, what's happening is that I'm not actually paying any attention to the left of the frame at all, right? The guy with the Under Armour shirt and the person with the blue one, and then that lady in the background with the headphones on, is just, for some reason, you know, she's in there, not because of, but there's something about her that she keeps elbowing into my face. I don't know, this thing. So I'm paying more attention to the right-hand side of the frame. And then, because that's more visually exciting, there's more interest going on there. You know, but then what's happening is that Mr. Orange Parker and his ice cream, right? He's breaking all this idea up. So actually, by increments, we're taking the photograph smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and then we've got the guy in the green top over here, right? Him and him. So let us just hold on one second. My wife's trying to come in the door. Shut that. I've locked her out. Hang on a sec. Right, I won't shout because I've got a microphone. Sean, just turn the handle properly. Alright, I won't be very long, sweetheart. Okay. Right. So sorry. The unexpected voice on the other side of the door. Yeah, so you know, we've got all the stuff on the left hand side and we've got the stuff on the right hand side. The stuff on the right hand side is more interesting, but the more we look at it, the more we're narrowing it down. And really, the picture here is this guy here, this ghostly figure with a yellow t-shirt on, and some other things here, and unfortunately there's a beer bottle, but there's not much you can do about that. That's the picture. There's a weird, mysterious sort of picture. And then of course, once you sort of recognize these things, you bring it back into trying to take that kind of idea, recognizing those sort of things, and then bring it into the wider picture. I can see where you're going with this. I see what you're trying to do, and I applaud your efforts. And almost by accident, you've captured an interesting thing on the right hand side. Now that you kind of see that they are there and what you can recognize, you'll be in a stronger position to catch them in the future. No, she kicks the door and the house will fall down. All right, okay, so here we go. So we've got Very interesting morning with on a river scene and stuff that there's it's I think it's lacking some atmosphere. That's kind of, it's evidently misty. And there's something going on, because we can see in the background that there's, some sort of mist coming off the river and what have you. And somehow this very characterful boat is sort of lacking of character. And I can't quite put my finger on why that should be. It's possible that it just feels clean for some reason. I don't know why it should feel clean, because it's not clean. It's quite rusty, and all the stuff around it is feeling rusty and all those sort of things. But I wonder, I think I would like to see maybe some sort of atmospheric thing, and it may be that this would actually benefit from a black and white treatment rather than the color. The colors are nice, but I don't think that they are kind of really giving us the atmosphere that you wanted to. And as I've been talking about this, I think what the problem is that the ship feels like it's divorced from the mist. And it's divorced because of this anchor thing on the left-hand side. So if you come around and you photograph the ship from more of a profile sort of thing with a longer lens or something that would compress the ship into this mistiness in the background, then it will make the ship feel like it's more part of this kind of boo, boo, sort of, fog bank kind of thing. But this because you've elected to choose to have the anchor stanchion MacGuffery thing, that it's kind of it's pulling it feels like it's almost pulling the ship out of the mist when we want the ship to be part of the mist. So that might that sort of I think that might have made it a bit stronger. And it goes to show how often it kind of, we need to really kind of maybe just kind of sit with an image. We talked earlier about having, sitting down, having a metaphorical smoke, and sitting with an image for a little while. I think this would have worked quite well. Right, so here we go. Right, so thank you all. I'm going to say this now before I collapse. Thank you all for staying here. We are at the last of our images, and I really like this. I like this very much. We talked about sort of graphic elements in here, and I do mention it quite a bit, and certainly in regards to being able to see the photographs that other people miss. This is why you are investing in your photography. It is to see these photographs that are all around us, and that most people just are too wrapped up in their little worlds to ever see. And this is a great example. I really do like this. The thing that I'm struggling with though is that at the bottom of the frame there's we've got this big tick sort of thing, and it's lovely, and there's some wonderful shadows. On the bottom right hand side of the frame there's a big black line of whatever, something has happened, right? That shadow stops, and because it's so black and it's so dark, it feels like that's actually the bottom of the image, right? But then it's not. So it feels like, when you have a picture on a black thing and it's not cropped quite properly, and the image just stops, but the image itself carries on, the canvas carries on. It's that kind of feel. There's something going on there. So that it feels like that is the bottom of the frame. Now, if you crop that out and you move the bottom of the crop up, then you bringing that white, this big tick into those points that they're just touching the edge of the bottom of the frame. That's like a little point of tension, and that will create a real stress point in the picture and make it a bit stronger. So it is unfortunate, but it's, again, I think this is one of those sort of things that you only sort of see later on. And if you take these kind of pictures, anything like me, it's often when you're walking around a museum or something like that, and they're less got my tripod out and I'm looking for pictures, and it's more kind of, oh, I see a picture, and I'll, you know, sort of thing like that. So I think, you know, that's kind of weird thing. Aside from that, again, these sort of images work great as series, as a set of images that all, you know, have a similar sort of vibe to them and things. And again, you know, I don't know if there's a way that we could do, because I think if we were to allow people to submit multiple images, I would be here all day, and what have you. But I really liked this sort of thing, and I have to say, thank you. It was okay, Tony. Thank you for letting me know. Yes, it is hand processed film. I think you need to. Did you? If you processed it yourself, I don't know what sort of film stock you're processing with. Try and shoot with some stock that's fairly forgiving. Although most black and white film is pretty forgiving, but do some tests about densities on your negatives, and you do that by processing for slightly longer periods, or you know, or what have you. But whatever thing you're using to teach you how to process film, guys, you want a bit of more density in your negative, and also make sure that you're exposing them correctly. But anyway, yes, so ladies and gentlemen, I have to say thank you. That it is that, you know, it is a pleasure talking to you guys, and seeing your images and getting your feedback and all sorts of things. And if you have been watching this and you would like to get some feedback on your photographs, as I mentioned, there are a couple of options. Either you can become a member, which I would deeply appreciate, or support me on Patreon, or if you want to take a little bit more of a deeper dive and see more of your images side by side, so we can have a proper chat about them, there is a link in the description box below about you know, having one-to-one sessions, or if you want to go slightly longer, you can just do mentorships. But thank you once again, everybody. So a reminder that we do this once a month. It's usually the last Sunday of the month. I think this 5 o'clock, because you can imagine if I started this at 8, I'd be going until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then you really would be watching me just drink myself into oblivion in front of you all. But it's been an absolute pleasure. You know, and thank you all once again for your continued support for the channel. It means a great deal for me. We are pushing up on 100,000 subscribers. So if you know anybody who's not subscribed yet, get them on board. It'd be awesome. And yeah, we'll see how we go. Anyway, thank you once again. This video will be on the YouTube channel for as long as the channel's around, so about 3.5 weeks. And then and you can watch it at any time. Okay, thank you ever so much for being here once again, and I will see you guys well, hopefully soon, when I have a new video coming out, which would be great. Anyway, have a wonderful Sunday, and yeah, look after yourselves. All right, cheerio.